Marvel. I'm Superman, and I start by living with Gwen Stacy. Chapter 1. The cold tiles pressed against his cheek, the smell of gunpowder filled his nostrils, and Lin Yi's consciousness slowly returned. He remembered being in the study area of his university library just a second ago, with his copy of Computer Basics, its key points highlighted, spread open before him, and the scent of osmanthus drifting in from outside the window in late September. But now, a dull ache from the back of his head made him let out a muffled groan. The moment he opened his eyes, the glaring emergency lights on the ceiling flickered wildly, and the red glow dyed everything around him as if it were soaked in blood. Everyone, stay still. If anyone moves again, this bullet won't just hit the wall. A hoarse roar sounded. Lin Yi turned his head and saw several figures in black combat suits and skull masks. The muzzles of their assault rifles still emitted faint smoke. The glass of the nearby bank counter was shattered everywhere, and several dollar bills were mixed in with the fragments, crumpled and trampled by the panicked crowd. This was not the library he knew, nor was it any bank near his school. Lin Yi propped himself up with his arms, trying to sit up, but his fingertips touched a warm liquid. He looked down. It was blood from the forehead of a man beside him, clutching a briefcase. The man had probably been hit by a gun butt and was now cowering and trembling on the ground. Don't move. A clear, cold female voice sounded in his ear. Lin Yi turned and saw a pair of clear blue eyes. It was a blonde, blue-eyed girl, probably around his age. Her white canvas shoes were a little dusty, and a silver school badge was pinned to the collar of her light blue dress. She looked like she had just finished class and was passing by the bank. Her wrists were bound with a plastic zip tie, but she wasn't crying like the others. She sat quietly in the corner, her gaze quickly scanning the surroundings. When her eyes finally landed on Lin Yi, she gently shook her head, signaling him not to attract the attention of the thugs. Lin Yi's Adam's apple bobbed. Just as he was about to ask, "Where is this?" a mechanical voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Detecting stable host vital signs, mental fluctuations meet binding conditions Superman evolution system activating. Binding successful. Host. Lin Yi, age, 18, original world identity, ordinary university student, current world, Marvel Universe, Blue Star 199,999. Current Superman gene awakening level, 1%. Basic attribute panel generated. Strength, 12, average for adult males, 5. Speed, 11, average for adult males, 5. Endurance, 13, average for adult males, 5. Reaction, 10, average for adult males, 5. Self-healing, 8, average for adult males, 3. Note: attribute values increase with gene awakening level. Unlockable Superman skills: Heat Vision, Awakening level 10%, Super Hearing, Awakening level 15%, Flight, Awakening level 25%, Steel Body, Awakening level 30%. Next stage Gene Awakening condition. Accumulated shock value reaches 1000 points, current accumulated, 0. System Warm Reminder. Shock value can be obtained by causing strong emotional fluctuations in others. The more people shocked, the higher the reward. Finally, a system evaluation. 1% awakening level is only slightly stronger than a weakling. If the host is shot dead, the system will immediately unbind and find the next lucky one. Lin Yi. What kind of terrible system is this? And a warm reminder. The Marvel Universe. Blue Star 199,999. Isn't that the Marvel Cinematic Universe he used to watch? Queens. He remembered that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, lived nearby, but he hadn't seen Spider-Man yet. Instead, he'd run into a bank robbery. And that blonde girl. Lin Yi secretly glanced at her again. The girl seemed to sense his gaze, and when she turned again, she gave him a reassuring look, subtly pointing her finger in the direction of the bank's main entrance. The glass doors there were locked shut with chains by the thugs, and the faint sound of police sirens could be heard getting closer from outside. Bang! Another gunshot. This time, the thug fired at the ceiling. The entire bank instantly fell silent, leaving only the flickering of the emergency lights and the suppressed sobs of a few people. Open the safe. Hurry up. The lead thug kicked the bank manager's knee. The manager dropped to his knees with a thud, his face pale, and fumbled for a key in his pocket. He was then escorted by two thugs towards the safe behind the counter. Lin Yi leaned against the wall, quietly wiggling his fingers. The strength value displayed on the system panel was 12, more than twice that of an ordinary person. But facing thugs with assault rifles, was that strength enough? He had never been in a fight, let alone against desperate criminals. Just as he was hesitating, the safe clicked open. The thugs let out excited low cheers and began stuffing money into their backpacks. Stacks of green dollars were crammed into the black backpacks, quickly forming small mountains. All right, let's go, the lead thug shouted. Just as he was about to turn, the sound of a loudspeaker suddenly came from outside. Listen, you inside. You are surrounded. Put down your weapons and release the hostages. This is your only way out. Lin Yi saw the blonde girl's body almost imperceptibly stiffen, appearing somewhat worried. The thugs clearly hadn't expected the police to arrive so quickly. The leader walked to the glass door, glanced outside, and his face instantly darkened. He turned, grabbed a nearby hostage by the collar, and pressed the gun to the person's temple. Tell your men to back off. Otherwise, I'll kill him right now. The loudspeaker outside was silent for a few seconds, then sounded again. I'm Captain George Stacy of the NYPD. We can negotiate, but you cannot harm the hostage. George Stacy. Lin Yi's heart sank, and he sharply looked at the blonde girl beside him. George Stacy was Gwen Stacy's father. So, this familiar-looking girl was Gwen, Spider-Man's ex-girlfriend. Sure enough, the next second, the lead thug seemed to recognize something. His gaze swept over the crowd and finally landed on Gwen. His eyes lit up. He quickly walked over, grabbed Gwen's wrist, and aimed the gun at her chest. Captain George Stacy, the thug laughed maliciously. You sure care about your hostages, don't you? Well, take a look. Who is this? He tore off the school badge from Gwen's neck and threw it outside the glass door. The loudspeaker outside instantly fell silent. After a while, George Stacy's voice came again. Let her go. Talk to me about whatever you want. Talk to you. The thug sneered. What we want is to leave here safely. Tell your men to retreat 500 meters and prepare a car for us with a full tank of gas, otherwise. He pressed the gun further forward. Gwen's face paled a little, but she still didn't cry, only bit her lower lip tightly. Lin Yi watched this scene, his heart clenching as if a hand had squeezed it. He had only been in this world for a little over 10 minutes. Was he really going to watch Gwen get hurt? The attribute values in the system panel were still flashing. 1% gene awakening, more than double the strength. If he rushed up now, could he beat these thugs? Dad, don't agree to them. Gwen suddenly spoke, her voice trembling slightly but clear. They won't keep their promise, you can't let them go. Shut up. The thug shoved Gwen roughly. She stumbled and hit the wall, a scratch on her arm bleeding from a shard. Lin Yi's pupils suddenly constricted, and a surge of nameless anger flared up from his heart. He really couldn't just sit by and do nothing. System, can 1% of my strength break their guns? Lin Yi asked in his mind. Ding. According to current attributes, the host's full-strength blow can destroy ordinary metal products. The assault rifle barrel in the thug's hand has a strength of about 15, and the host's strength value is 12. With speed acceleration, there is an 80% chance of shattering the barrel. However, the host needs to be careful. Their bullets are faster than the host's reaction speed. If you are hit in a vital spot, even with self-healing ability, you won't be saved. Lin Yi took a deep breath and quietly moved his body, approaching the thugs by a few steps. There were 5 thugs in the hall now, 3 guarding the door, 1 watching the hostages, and the leader was negotiating with the outside on a walkie-talkie, his gun still pointed at Gwen. George, you have 10 minutes to think. The thug roared into the walkie-talkie. If I don't see a car in 10 minutes, you can prepare to collect your daughter's body. With that, he hung up the walkie-talkie and irritably kicked a nearby chair. Just then, Lin Yi suddenly moved. His speed was more than twice his usual, his footsteps on the tiles almost silent. Before anyone could react, he had already rushed behind the thug guarding the hostages, grabbed the barrel of the opponent's gun with both hands, and twisted it sharply to the side. Crack! The crisp sound of metal breaking rang out, and the assault rifle in the thug's hand instantly broke into 2 pieces. The opponent froze for a moment before realizing he was under attack. Just as he was about to throw a punch, Lin Yi had already punched him in the stomach. Ah! The thug grunted, falling to the ground like a broken sack, curling up and twitching. This sudden turn of events plunged the entire bank into dead silence. Everyone was stunned, including the thugs. Ding. Detected 5 people around generating strong shock emotions. Gain shock value plus 30 times 5 equals 150 points. Current total. 150 inches. The leading thug was the first to react, roaring, "You're asking for death." He shoved Gwen away and raised his gun, firing at Lin Yi. "Be careful." Gwen cried out. Lin Yi had already prepared himself. Relying on his superhuman reaction speed, he lunged to the side. A bullet grazed his arm and hit the wall, leaving a bullet hole. A stinging pain shot through his arm. He must have been grazed by the bullet. Ding. Detected host injury, self-healing ability activating. Ding. Detected 10 people around generating shock emotions. Gain shock value plus 30 times 10 equals 300 points. Current total. 450 inches. Grab him. The leading thug shouted, and the other 2 thugs guarding the door immediately turned and aimed their guns at Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't panic. He saw a fallen chair nearby, bent down, picked it up, and threw it at the nearest thug. The chair flew through the air with a whoosh. The thug instinctively raised his hand to block, and in that instant, Lin Yi had already rushed in front of him, punching him in the jaw. Bang! The thug's body fell straight backward, hitting the glass door with a loud crash. Ding! Detected 15 people around generating shock emotions. Gain shock value plus 30 times 15 equals 450 points. Current total. 900 inches. Only 100 points left. Lin Yi silently thought, turning to look at the last thug. That thug was already terrified, his hands trembling, the muzzle of his gun pointed at the ceiling. Lin Yi seized the opportunity, rushed over, snatched his gun, and then used the butt of the gun to smash the back of his head. Thud. The last thug also fell down. Now, only the leader of the thugs remained. He watched his accomplices fall one by one, his eyes filled with fear and disbelief. He still held his gun, but dared not shoot again, only retreating step by step. "You, who are you?" The thug's voice trembled. Lin Yi didn't answer, only walked towards him step by step. His arm still hurt, but the self-healing ability had already started to work, and the pain was slowly lessening. He could feel everyone's gaze in the surroundings focused on him, with shock, gratitude, and curiosity. Ding. Detected 20 people around generating strong shock emotions. Gain shock value plus 30 times 20 equals 600 points. Current total. 1500. Ding. Accumulated shock value reached 1000 points. Superman gene awakening increased to 2%. Basic attribute panel updated. Strength. 15 plus 3, speed. 14 plus 3, endurance. 16 plus 3, reaction. 13 plus 3, self-healing. 11 plus 3. New function unlocked. Super perception elementary can perceive life forms within a 50-meter radius. System evaluation. Not bad, host, you actually didn't get killed. It seems even weaklings have a chance to turn the tables, but 2% is still not enough, keep working hard to earn shock value. Lin Yi ignored the system's taunts. He looked at the thug in front of him, then suddenly quickened his pace and rushed over. The thug was scared out of his wits and turned to run, but Lin Yi grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up like a small chick. "Ah, let me go." The thug struggled, but couldn't break free from Lin Yi's grip. Lin Yi casually threw him to the ground, stepping on his back to keep him from moving. The bank fell silent, then erupted in cheers. The hostages hugged each other, some even crying. Lin Yi released his foot, looking at the subdued thugs on the ground, and let out a long sigh of relief. Just then, the glass door was smashed open by the police outside, and a group of police officers in bulletproof vests rushed in, led by none other than George Stacy. He immediately saw the thug pinned to the ground, and Lin Yi standing nearby. Finally his gaze fell on Gwen in the corner. "Gwen." George quickly walked over, hugged his daughter, and looked her up and down. "Are you alright? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Dad." Gwen shook her head, pointing at Lin Yi. "He saved us." George followed her finger, his gaze falling on Lin Yi. The young boy looked to be only 18 or 19, dressed in a plain t-shirt and jeans, with a scrape on his arm, yet he stood there with clear eyes, not at all like someone who had just been through a fierce battle. "Thank you, young man." George walked over, extending his hand. I'm George Stacy, captain of the NYPD. Lin Yi shook his hand. The other man's palm was broad and strong, with thick calluses from years of holding a gun. My name is Lin Yi, he smiled. I just did what I had to do. You did much more than that. George looked at the subdued thugs on the ground, then at the scattered fragments of gun stocks around them, his eyes filled with surprise. You single-handedly subdued 5 thugs armed with assault rifles. Lin Yi rubbed the back of his head, saying somewhat sheepishly, just got lucky. Gwen, standing nearby, couldn't help but laugh. Luck doesn't help you dodge bullets and smash guns. She walked over to Lin Yi and handed him a tissue. Your arm is injured, wipe it first. Thanks. Lin Yi took the tissue and wiped the blood from his arm, feeling Gwen's gaze on him. Ding. Detected strong shock emotion from George Stacy and Gwen Stacy, gaining shock value plus 50 times 2 equals 100 points. Current total, 1600. Ding. Detected shock emotion from surrounding police officers, gaining shock value plus 30 times 10 equals 300 points. Current total, 1900. The system's prompt sounded in his mind, and Lin Yi was secretly pleased. It seemed that earning shock value in the coming days wouldn't be difficult. George Stacy had already begun arranging for police officers to handle the scene and take statements. He walked over and patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Lin Yi, you need to come back to the precinct with us to give a statement. Also, we need to understand your situation. Which school do you attend? Do you live nearby? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't exactly say he was a transmigrator from another world, could he? It seemed he needed to quickly concoct a plausible identity. George Stacy's hand rested on Lin Yi's shoulder, his eyes filled with scrutiny. As an old captain, he had seen all sorts of people. This teenager had just single-handedly subdued 5 armed thugs, yet his eyes darted away when asked about his identity, clearly hiding something. Lin Yi's back instantly tensed. He could only frantically poke the system in his mind. System. What is my identity in this world right now? Don't tell me I don't have one. Ding. Host's current world identity has been generated. Lin Yi, 18 years old, orphan, born in a Queens orphanage. Left the orphanage half a year ago after turning 18. Currently works odd jobs at a fast food restaurant in Queens. Was fired by his boss 3 days ago. No fixed address. Bank account balance, $17 and 50 cents. System evaluation. How about that? Grounded enough, right? Can't exactly give you a billionaire identity, that would be boring. Anyway, being an orphan garners sympathy, it's just a bit poor. Host, keep up the good work earning money. Lin Yi. He almost couldn't control the urge to roll his eyes. Other transmigrators were either descendants of hidden powerhouses or possessed ancestral treasures, but he, on the other hand, had become a homeless, unemployed orphan, struggling even to eat. Lin Yi. George saw him remain silent for a long time and pressed again, is there anything you're uncomfortable saying? The surrounding police officers also looked over, including Gwen, who was standing not far away. Lin Yi took a deep breath, knowing he couldn't hide it. It was too easy for the NYPD to check someone's identity. Rather than fabricating a lie and being exposed, it was better to tell the truth. Captain, I'm an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage. I started working half a year ago. I was fired from the fast food restaurant a few days ago. I don't have a place to live now, nor do I have any relatives. As soon as he finished speaking, the precinct fell silent for a few seconds. The police officers who had gathered to watch the commotion were stunned, and George's brows furrowed, the scrutiny in his eyes turning to surprise. Who would have thought that the agile teenager who dared to confront thugs was actually a homeless orphan? Ding. Detected shock emotion from George Stacy, gaining shock value plus 60 points. Ding. Detected shock emotion from 5 surrounding police officers, gaining shock value plus 30 times 5 equals 150 points. Ding. Detected shock plus sympathy emotion from Gwen Stacy, gaining shock value plus 50 points. Current total, 2,160 points. System evaluation. C. I told you being an orphan would garner sympathy, didn't I? It's just that the shock value is a bit low. Next time, how about we make it even more tragic? Lin Yi ignored the system's complaints, lowering his head, not daring to meet anyone's gaze. This feeling of exposing his predicament was not pleasant. Sorry, I didn't mean to pry into your privacy. George quickly reacted, patting his arm, his tone softening considerably. You saved so many people, especially my daughter. The NYPD won't abandon you. I'll help you apply for a reward, about $5,000. Although it's not much, it's enough for you to find a place to stay and then a job. $5,000. Lin Yi suddenly looked up, his eyes lighting up. For him right now, this was an enormous sum. His bank balance on the system panel was only $17 US50, not even enough for dinner tonight, let alone a hotel. Thank you, Captain. Lin Yi said excitedly, his previous embarrassment instantly dissipating by more than half. You're welcome, you deserve it. George smiled, and just as he was about to say something else, a grumble suddenly sounded. Lin Yi's face instantly turned red, it was his stomach growling. He had eaten a piece of bread in the library yesterday afternoon and hadn't eaten anything for almost a day now. The confrontation with the thugs had consumed a lot of his energy, and now that he relaxed, hunger surged over him. The surrounding police officers couldn't help but laugh, and the previously serious atmosphere suddenly lightened. Gwen also covered her mouth and chuckled, walking over to Lin Yi and shaking her phone. Looks like you're starving. I know a good burger place nearby. How about I treat you to dinner? As a thank you for saving me. How can I impose? Lin Yi scratched his head. There's nothing to impose about, Gwen winked, tugging on his sleeve. My dad still has to deal with the aftermath, and I haven't had dinner either. Shall we go together? George looked at the two of them and nodded. Go on, be careful. I'll have a colleague drive you back later. Oh, and Lin Yi, if you don't have a place to stay for now, you can stay in the police station's temporary lounge for a night until you get your bonus and find a place. Thank you, Chief. Lin Yi quickly expressed his gratitude. By the time he walked out of the police station with Gwen, it was already dark outside. The streetlights in Queens lit up, casting an orange-yellow glow on the asphalt, with cars occasionally driving by. Gwen walked ahead, her white canvas shoes making soft footsteps on the sidewalk. You were really brave just now, Gwen suddenly said, turning to look at Lin Yi. I've never seen anyone dare to confront 5 armed thugs alone, especially since you look like you haven't had professional training. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly made an excuse. When I was in the orphanage, I learned a bit of self-defense from an old security guard. I didn't expect to actually use it this time. Gwen didn't seem to doubt him and nodded. Then you're still very impressive. If it were me, I would have panicked long ago. She paused, then asked, you used to work at a fast food restaurant. Were you planning to do that forever, or do you have other things you want to do? I haven't thought about it yet, Lin Yi said honestly. Before he transmigrated, he was a computer science student and originally wanted to find a job as a programmer after graduation. But now that he was in the Marvel universe, even his identity wasn't stable, let alone finding a job related to his major. Actually, you could consider continuing your studies. Gwen stopped and looked at him seriously. I just got into Empire State University this year, studying biochemistry. The school has scholarships for orphans, so if you want to go to school, I can help you check the application requirements. Empire State University. Lin Yi's heart stirred. He remembered that Peter Parker also studied at this university later, and biochemistry. Gwen studied this in the original story and later became an excellent scientist. Biochemistry. Sounds difficult, Lin Yi scratched his head. He knew nothing about biochemistry, he had only studied computer science before. It's actually alright, as long as you're interested, you can learn it well, Gwen smiled, her eyes sparkling. I've loved biology since I was a child, especially research in genetics. I find it particularly fascinating. Oh, and I have a classmate who also grew up in Queens, named Peter Parker. He's also very smart, just a bit clumsy sometimes. Peter Parker. Lin Yi finally heard a familiar name. He pretended to hear it for the first time. Peter Parker. Sounds like an interesting person. He's quite interesting. He just always likes to be late. Last time in class, he almost knocked over the professor's experimental equipment. Gwen recalled Peter's embarrassing moments and couldn't help but laugh, but he's a really good person. If you go to Empire State University in the future, I can introduce you to. The two chatted and soon arrived at the burger joint Gwen mentioned. It was a somewhat famous chain restaurant, very crowded, with the aroma of burgers and fries filling the air. Gwen, familiar with the place, found a window seat and handed the menu to Lin Yi. Order whatever you like, it's my treat. Lin Yi was indeed starving and didn't stand on ceremony, ordering a double cheeseburger, a large fries, and a Coke. Gwen, on the other hand, ordered a vegetable salad and a glass of milk, seemingly very health conscious. While waiting for their food, Gwen asked about Lin Yi's living situation again. You don't have a place to stay right now. Are you planning to temporarily stay in the police station's lounge? Yeah, for a few days, then I'll find a place after I get the bonus. Lin Yi bit the straw, feeling a bit troubled inside. The police station's lounge definitely wouldn't be comfortable, and he couldn't stay there forever, so he needed to find a stable place to live as soon as possible. Gwen frowned, seemingly deep in thought. After a while, she said softly, actually, we have a spare room at home. If you don't mind, you could stay for a few days. As soon as she finished speaking, she shook her head again. Never mind, my dad is quite strict, and we just met, so he probably wouldn't agree. Lin Yi looked at her conflicted expression, feeling a little warmth in his heart. Even though Gwen had just met him, she was willing to offer help, just as kind as she was in the original story. He smiled. It's okay, the police station's lounge is fine, and I don't want to trouble you. Soon, the food arrived. Lin Yi was famished and picked up the burger, eating it heartily. Gwen watched him wolf down his food and couldn't help but laugh, sharing half of her fries with him. Eat slowly, don't choke. Thanks, Lin Yi mumbled, his mouth full of food. After finishing the burger, Lin Yi finally felt alive again. Gwen paid the bill, and the two walked out of the burger joint together. It was already past 9 in the evening, and the streets were much emptier, with only a few convenience stores still lit up. Shall I walk you to the police station? Gwen asked. No need, I can go by myself. You should hurry home, it's too late and not safe. Lin Yi waved his hand. His current strength and reactions were stronger than an ordinary person's, so he could handle danger if it arose. Gwen thought about it and nodded, then be careful. If anything happens, you can call me. She took a sticky note from her bag, wrote down her phone number, and handed it to Lin Yi. This is my cell phone number. Call me anytime if you need anything. Okay, thank you. Lin Yi took the sticky note and put it in his pocket. The two said goodbye at the intersection. Gwen turned and walked towards her home, and after a few steps, she looked back and waved at Lin Yi. Lin Yi also waved back, watching her figure disappear around the street corner before turning to walk towards the police station. He had only walked a few steps when a man in a floral shirt with a small mustache suddenly stopped him. The man had a strong scent of perfume about him, and his eyes held an ill-intentioned smile. Hey kid, you're quite handsome, Asian, right? Lin Yi frowned and took a step back. What do you want? Nothing much, just want to introduce you to a good job. The man leaned closer, lowering his voice considerably. I have an underground club, specifically looking for young, handsome guys like you to chat and drink with rich female bosses. You can earn a few $100s a night, much better than working at a fast food restaurant. As he spoke, he eyed Lin Yi up and down, making Lin Yi feel very uncomfortable. And, the man added, those female bosses really like handsome Asian guys like you, gentle and obedient. As long as you're cooperative, you can earn even more money. How about it? Want to come and see? You can start tonight. A few $100s a night. Lin Yi's heart rate instantly accelerated. He was penniless now, without even a place to live. If he could earn that much money, he could immediately find a place to stay and wouldn't have to sleep in the police station's lounge. When you're poor, there's really no bottom line. Lin Yi bit his lower lip, his mind starting to struggle. This job sounded disreputable, even a bit dangerous, but compared to sleeping on the streets and starving, it didn't seem entirely unacceptable. At least it could solve his immediate survival problem. Just as he was hesitating whether to agree, a rush of footsteps suddenly came from behind him. Lin Yi. Don't listen to him. Lin Yi turned around and saw Gwen running towards him quickly. She grabbed Lin Yi's wrist, pulled him aside, and said coldly to the man, please stay away from him, or I'll call the police. The man was stunned for a moment. Seeing Gwen's serious expression, he didn't dare to pester them further. He pouted, grumbled, and walked away. Why did you come back? Lin Yi looked at Gwen. She was out of breath from running, and beads of sweat had appeared on her forehead. Halfway there, I just felt uneasy, so I turned back to check. Gwen panted, her hand still holding his. Were you about to agree to him? Do you know how dangerous those places are? Those people are no good at all. Once you're in, it's very hard to get out. I'm just a bit poor and wanted to find a job to earn money. Lin Yi was a little embarrassed. Gwen looked at his distressed appearance, and her heart softened. She let go of Lin Yi's hand and took out her phone from her bag. Don't go to places like that, and don't stay at the police station anymore. Come home with me, I'll talk to my dad. But you just said your dad is strict. It's okay, I'll talk to him properly. Gwen said, dialing George's number. The call connected quickly, and George's voice came through. Gwen. Why aren't you home yet? Dad, I ran into Lin Yi on the street. He almost got tricked into a bad job. Gwen's voice was serious. He has nowhere to stay right now, and I want him to stay with us temporarily. Don't we have an empty room? Please agree, he saved me, we can't just abandon him. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the phone, presumably George was considering it. Lin Yi stood by, a little nervous, afraid that George wouldn't agree. After a while, George's voice finally came through. Alright, but you need to be careful. I'll be home after I finish up here. That's great. Thank you, Dad. Gwen happily hung up the phone, turned to Lin Yi, and smiled. Let's go, come home with me. Lin Yi looked at Gwen's bright smile, and his heart suddenly felt warm. The two walked side by side towards Gwen's house. Ding. Detected strong protective instincts plus sympathy from Gwen Stacy, gained shock value plus 70 points. Current total, 2,230 points. System evaluation. Host, your luck isn't bad. You just transmigrated and already found a kind person to take you in. But don't expect to always rely on others. Earning shock value to increase your gene awakening is the real priority. Leaving the commercial street where the burger shop was located, and walking deeper into Queens, the houses on both sides of the street gradually changed from dense apartment buildings to detached houses with small yards. Streetlights were hidden among the tall plane tree branches, and warm yellow light filtered through the gaps in the leaves, casting mottled shadows on the asphalt road. This was Forest Hills, a famous middle-class community in New York, and also Gwen Stacy's home. The neighbors here are all very kind. They're just sometimes a bit too enthusiastic, Gwen said, walking ahead. No sooner had she spoken than the door of a house nearby suddenly opened, and a middle-aged woman wearing an apron poked her head out. Her eyes lit up when she saw Gwen. Gwen. Just getting back. Hi, Mrs. Wilson. Gwen stopped, smiling and waving, just had dinner with a friend. Mrs. Wilson's gaze immediately fell on Lin Yi, scrutinizing him from head to toe. A knowing smile played on her lips. Friend. This young man is quite handsome, isn't he your boyfriend? How come I haven't seen him before? Gwen's face instantly turned red. She quickly waved her hands. No, Mrs. Wilson, he's a friend I met today, and he's staying with us for a few days temporarily. Oh, staying for a few days temporarily, huh? Mrs. Wilson clearly didn't believe her, winking. It's all right, it's all right. Gwen, you're so excellent, you deserve such a handsome young man. As she spoke, she nodded to Lin Yi again, her tone warm. What's your name, young man? Come visit often. My name is Lin Yi, hello auntie. Lin Yi smiled awkwardly. Before he could say more, a few other neighbors out for a stroll nearby looked over. Seeing Gwen and him walking together, they all stopped to greet them. Oh, Gwen brought a friend home. This young man is really handsome. Is he a boyfriend? Is Gwen finally wising up? Does George know? He'll have to give him a good once-over. The rising chorus of teasing made Gwen's face even redder. She pulled Lin Yi's wrist and walked quickly forward, muttering softly, I told you they're too enthusiastic, don't mind them. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Just as he was about to comfort her, the system's notification sound suddenly rang in his mind. Ding. Detected shock plus curiosity from Mrs. Wilson, gained shock value plus 40 points. Ding. Detected shock plus gossip from 3 surrounding neighbors, gained shock value plus 30x3 equals 90 points. Ding. Current total, 2,360 points. System evaluation. didn't expect the host to have a talent for earning shock value with his looks. However, this level of shock value is too little. It is recommended that the host do something more exciting next time, such as performing a bare-handed steel pipe bend in front of the neighbors. Lin Yi. Soon, the two arrived in front of a light gray detached house. Several apple trees were planted in the yard, with a white wicker chair placed under them. A wooden house number carved with Stacy hung by the door, and a small police badge decoration hung next to it, clearly George's handiwork. Gwen took out her key and opened the yard gate. As she pushed open the door, the motion-sensing light in the entryway automatically turned on. The interior of the house was very cozy, with light beige wallpaper, original wood flooring, and several family photos hanging on the walls. There was a photo of Gwen with her parents when she was little, a photo of George in his police uniform, and another of Gwen at her high school graduation, where she was holding flowers and smiling exceptionally brightly. Come in, make yourself at home. Gwen changed into her slippers and took out a new pair from the shoe cabinet, handing them to Lin Yi. These are new, my dad just bought them. They haven't been worn yet, so you can wear them first. Lin Yi took the slippers and looked at the photos in the entryway. Are these photos of your family? Yes, Gwen nodded, her gaze softening considerably. That's my mom. She passed away when I was in junior high. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up a painful memory. It's okay, it's been so long. Gwen smiled, said no more, and turned to walk upstairs. I'll show you to your room. It's on the second floor, where my mom used to live. It's been empty since then, and I just cleaned it yesterday. Following Gwen upstairs to the second floor, she pushed open a door at the end of the hallway. The light in the room was soft, the walls were light blue, and a desk sat by the window. On the desk was an old photo frame, holding a picture of Gwen's mother. The woman in the photo had the same blue eyes as Gwen and a gentle smile. On the bedside table was an unopened bottle of perfume. The bottle was a bit old but kept very clean. My mom used to love this room. Gwen walked to the window, gently brushing dust off the desk. She was a painter and often painted here. If you don't mind, you can stay here. The sheets and duvet are all newly changed. I don't mind, thank you. Lin Yi looked at the room's decor and could feel Gwen's fondness for her mother. Gwen then took out a clean set of pajamas and a towel from the wardrobe, handing them to Lin Yi. These are all new, you can use them first. Oh, and it's inconvenient for you without a phone, so here. She pulled out a silver smartphone from her pocket. This is my old phone, it still works. I've already saved my number in it. If you need anything, you can call me anytime. Lin Yi took the phone. He hadn't expected Gwen to be so thoughtful. Thank you, Gwen. You're welcome, you saved me. It's the least I can do. Gwen smiled and checked her watch. It's almost 10. You go get settled, and I'll go downstairs to get you a glass of water. After Gwen went downstairs, Lin Yi sat on the bed, playing with the phone in his hand. He turned on the phone and found that it was already connected to the home's Wi-Fi. The desktop background was a photo of Gwen and a small dog, looking very cute. He opened the browser and tried searching for Marvel, but found no relevant results. He then searched for Iron Man, and the page immediately brought up many news articles. Stark Industries CEO Tony Stark attacked in Afghanistan, announces closure of weapons division upon return. Iron Man makes first public appearance, repels terrorists in Los Angeles. Stark Industries stock rises 30% due to Iron Man incident. Next, he searched for mutants, and again, a lot of information appeared. Professor X founds Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, dedicated to helping mutants integrate into society. Magneto leads the Brotherhood of Mutants, clashes with humans multiple times. Government proposes Mutant Registration Act, sparks social controversy. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. This world not only had Iron Man but also mutants. That meant this was a hybrid universe, mixing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men universe. Just then, the sound of a door opening came from downstairs, followed by George's footsteps. Lin Yi quickly put away his phone and walked out of the room. Downstairs, George had just finished changing his shoes. When he saw Lin Yi, he nodded. Lin Yi, please have a seat. Gwen, you can go back to your room and rest. I need to talk to Lin Yi. Okay, Dad. Gwen glanced at Lin Yi but still obediently returned to her room. Lin Yi sat on the living room sofa, and George sat opposite him. He looked at Lin Yi with a serious expression. I've had my colleagues investigate your identity, George began, his voice steady. You are indeed an orphan, grew up in a Queen's orphanage, have no criminal record, and have not been involved with any mutant or superhero-related organizations. Earlier, I also had a forensic doctor examine your body and found no traces of mutant genes, nor any injections of super soldier serum or similar substances. Lin Yi said, Chief, I really am just an ordinary person. I was working at a fast food restaurant before, and encountering a robbery was just a coincidence. I know, George interrupted him, his tone softening a little. I'm not doubting you. On the contrary, I admire you. It's rare for an ordinary young man to step forward when facing armed thugs. And you seem like a good person, very handsome, and gentle. Gwen told me you're very polite. You flatter me. However, George's tone shifted, and his eyes became serious. I hope you understand that Gwen is my daughter, my only relative. She's still very young, just got into college, and has her own life plans. I know you might not have any other intentions, but as a father, I must warn you not to have any ideas about Gwen. She deserves someone better. It's not that you're not good, but your current situation and future direction might not be suitable for you too. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately understood George's meaning. He looked at George's earnest gaze, knowing this was a father's protection for his daughter. He nodded solemnly. Chief, please rest assured, I understand what you mean. I truly don't have any thoughts about romance right now, and I also know that Gwen and I are just friends. I will maintain proper boundaries and won't cause any trouble for you or Gwen. George looked at Lin Yi's sincere eyes, and a slight smile appeared on his face. He stood up and patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Good, I believe you. It's getting late, you should get some rest. Tomorrow morning I'll have Gwen show you around the neighborhood. Oh, and I've already submitted the application for the reward money. It should come through next week, and then you can find a suitable place to live. Thank you, Chief. Lin Yi also stood up. By the way, what's your superpower? I'm rich. Bruce Wayne, Justice League 2017. Back in his room, Lin Yi first went to the bathroom to take a shower. The warm water washed away the day's fatigue and dust. The scrapes on his arm had mostly healed, leaving only faint red marks. His self-healing ability was indeed very useful. After showering, Lin Yi lay on his bed and pulled out his phone. He hesitated for a moment, then sent Gwen a message, not asleep yet. Within a few seconds, Gwen replied, not yet, just finished my homework. What did my dad talk to you about? Was he saying bad things about me? Lin Yi couldn't help but smile, and replied, no, your dad just talked to me about identity issues, and told me not to have any ideas about you, fearing I'd distract you. He didn't hide anything and told Gwen truthfully. Gwen's message came quickly. Ah. Why did my dad say that again? Don't mind him, he's just too worried about me. I don't mind, Lin Yi replied, I can understand your dad's feelings. He's a good father. Yeah, he really dotes on me, Gwen replied. Oh, right, I have classes at Empire State University tomorrow. If you're free, you can come to school with me for a stroll. The campus environment is pretty good, and there are many interesting places. Lin Yi's heart stirred. Empire State University. Peter Parker also studied there. Maybe he'd run into him tomorrow. He replied, sounds good, I also want to see what a university looks like. That's great. I'll wake you up at 7 tomorrow morning, and we'll have breakfast together. Okay, good night. Good night, Lin Yi. Putting down his phone, Lin Yi looked at the ceiling. He had only been in this strange Marvel universe for one day, and he had already experienced a bank robbery, found a system, met Gwen and her father, and was now staying at the Stacys. Lin Yi closed his eyes and gradually drifted off to sleep. At 7:30 in the morning, the aroma of bacon and fried eggs wafted from the Stacy family kitchen. George, dressed in his dark blue police uniform, was looking down, flipping through the newspaper. Gwen sat on the other side of the dining table, biting into toast, with a laptop in her hand. When Lin Yi walked into the kitchen, Gwen immediately looked up, smiling, and handed him a cup of hot milk. Awake. Come and have breakfast. I fried the bacon today, it's a bit more tender than my dad's. Thank you. Lin Yi took the milk and sat down at the dining table, his gaze falling on the golden fried egg on his plate. Yesterday he was worried about sleeping in a park, but now he had a temporary home, and someone thoughtfully prepared breakfast. Oh, right, Lin Yi suddenly remembered the issue of entering the school and looked at Gwen. Is Empire State University open to outsiders? Will it cause you trouble if I go in with you? Don't worry, Gwen swallowed her toast and waved her hand. The school rules state that as long as you're accompanied by a student's family member or friend, you can get in after signing in. When we get to the school gate later, I'll just tell the security guard, it won't be a problem. George, who was beside them, put down his newspaper, took a sip of coffee, and looked at Lin Yi, admonishing him. There are a lot of people in the school, so be careful when you're with Gwen. If anything happens, call Gwen, or ask the campus security for help. I understand, Captain, thank you. Lin Yi nodded quickly. After breakfast, the three of them left together. George had to go to work at the police station and drove off first, while Lin Yi walked to school with Gwen. Forest Hills wasn't far from Empire State University, about a 20-minute walk. The two walked slowly along the tree-lined path, encountering many students going to school along the way. Isn't that Gwen? Who's that guy next to her? He looks so handsome, is he her boyfriend? I haven't seen him before. No way. Isn't Gwen always focused on her studies? How did she suddenly get into a relationship? The passing students whispered, their eyes occasionally falling on Lin Yi and Gwen. Gwen's face turned red again, and she quickened her pace, whispering to Lin Yi, don't listen to their nonsense, people at school just love to gossip. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. It's okay, we're just friends anyway, let them misunderstand if they want. Ding. Detected 5 students around generating shock plus gossip emotions. Gained shock value plus 30x 5 equals 150 points. Current total, 2,510 points. System evaluation. Hosts, scandalous physique, is quite something. You can earn shock value wherever you go, but the efficiency is too low. It is recommended that the host perform a wall climbing stunt on campus next time, guaranteeing double the shock value. Lin Yi ignored the system's complaints and continued walking with Gwen. As they approached the entrance of Empire State University, a black Bentley Mulsanne slowly pulled over. Its gleaming body stood out in the sunlight. The car door opened, and an old butler in a black suit stepped out first, gracefully walking around to the other side, opening the car door, and extending his hand to shield the top of the door. Immediately after, a young man stepped out of the car. He looked to be about the same age as Lin Yi and Gwen, with meticulously combed black hair, deep blue eyes like gems, and dressed in a custom white shirt and black trousers, exuding an air of nobility. As soon as he got out of the car, several girls in short skirts surrounded him, chattering greetings. Bruce. You're here so early today too. Bruce, are you going to the party this weekend? The old butler stepped forward, gently but firmly blocking the girls, and smiled. Excuse me, young ladies, young Master Bruce still has classes to attend, please make way. Although the girls were reluctant, they obediently moved aside. The young man ignored the girls' gazes, merely nodded slightly, and walked straight towards the school gate. The old butler followed behind him, carrying a black briefcase. Lin Yi looked at the young man's back and secretly thought to himself, another rich jerk. Who is that? Lin Yi asked casually. Gwen looked at him in surprise. You actually don't know him. That's Bruce Wayne. The heir to Wayne Enterprises, on par with Tony Stark of Stark Industries, both famous billionaires in New York. And he's also a student at Empire State University. Just like me, he just started this year, studying a double major in psychology and management. Bruce Wayne. Lin Yi's eyes widened instantly, and he stopped in his tracks. How could he not know Bruce Wayne? That was Batman from the DC universe. He originally thought this world was just a mixed universe of Marvel and X-Men, but he never expected it to even have DC characters. Lin Yi looked at Bruce Wayne's retreating figure, his heart churning with shock. Batman and Iron Man in the same world. Will there be a scene where the Avengers and the Justice League clash in the future? Bruce Wayne is still so young now, he probably hasn't become Batman yet, right? The old butler by his side must be Alfred. Ding. Detected intense shock from the host, triggering a chain reaction, gaining plus 100 shock points. Ding. Detected shock plus envy from 3 surrounding students, gaining plus 30 times 3 equals 90 shock points. Current total, 2,700 points. System evaluation. Oh, so the host can be shocked too, huh? It seems this mixed universe is more lively than you imagined. There will be plenty of opportunities to shock you in the future, so get used to it. Lin Yi took a deep breath, barely managing to calm his excitement. He followed Gwen through the school gate, his gaze still scanning around, hoping to encounter other DC characters. Empire State University's campus was vast, shaded by trees, and the teaching buildings were all red brick, looking very historic. Many students were strolling and discussing problems, and some were reading on the lawn, creating a relaxed atmosphere. We're almost at the teaching building. I have 2 classes this morning, in that building ahead, Gwen said, pointing to a white teaching building not far away, and pulling Lin Yi to quicken their pace. As they reached the entrance of the teaching building, a young man in a gray suit happened to walk out. He looked to be in his 20s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, with neatly combed hair. He held several psychology books in his hand, had a gentle demeanor, and a faint smile on his lips. Professor Crane. Gwen immediately stopped and greeted him with a smile. The man looked up, and his smile became even gentler when he saw Gwen. Good morning, Gwen. His gaze fell on Lin Yi. Professor, this is my friend Lin Yi, he's accompanying me to school today, Gwen quickly introduced, then turned to Lin Yi and said, Lin Yi, this is Professor Jonathan Crane, our school's psychology professor. He's very accomplished, he's published several papers on the psychology of fear. Hello, Professor Crane, Lin Yi greeted politely, but his heart suddenly skipped a beat. Jonathan Crane. Why does that name sound so familiar? Hello, Lin Yi. Professor Crane extended his hand and shook Lin Yi's. His hand was cool, but his grip was firm. Gwen often mentions you in class, saying you were very brave and saved her. You flatter me, Professor, I just did what I had to do, Lin Yi said modestly, his mind racing. Jonathan Crane. Research on the psychology of fear, could he be the Scarecrow from the DC universe? He remembered that Scarecrow's real name was Jonathan Crane, a psychology professor who, obsessed with studying fear, improved fear gas to induce hallucinations, making people see their greatest fears. He later became one of Batman's main villains. Lin Yi looked at the gentle Professor Crane in front of him and found it hard to connect him with the sinister and terrifying Scarecrow. Could it be a different person with the same name? Or was he not yet a villain, just an ordinary psychology professor? Oh, right, Professor, Gwen suddenly remembered Lin Yi's job problem and quickly said, Lin Yi doesn't have a job right now and is looking for a part-time position. Do you know if the school's facilities department is hiring any staff lately? Like library organization or campus cleaning? Professor Crane paused for a moment, then nodded. The facilities department is indeed always hiring part-timers. I know the head of the department. I'll talk to him later and ask for you. If there's a suitable position, I'll contact you. Really? Thank you so much, Professor. Both Gwen and Lin Yi were delighted, and Lin Yi was especially grateful, not expecting to have hope for a job so soon after arriving at school. You're welcome, it's no trouble at all. Professor Crane glanced at his watch. It's getting late, Gwen. You should go to class now, don't be late. Okay, Professor, I'll go to class now. Gwen nodded, then turned to Lin Yi and said, my classes finish around noon, at 12 o'clock. Shall we meet at the school cafeteria entrance and have lunch together? Sure, you go ahead. Don't worry about me, Lin Yi said with a smile. After Gwen walked into the teaching building, Professor Crane said to Lin Yi, if you're not busy, would you like to take a walk with me around campus? I don't have classes either, and we can chat. That would be great, Professor, thank you, Lin Yi agreed, but his guard went up. He wanted to take this opportunity to observe Professor Crane and see if he was indeed the Scarecrow. The two walked slowly along the tree-lined path next to the teaching building, and Professor Crane began to talk about his research. I'm currently conducting research on human fear psychology, exploring the impact of fear on human behavior. Have you ever had anything you were particularly afraid of? Like spiders, or darkness? I don't seem to have anything I'm particularly afraid of. Is that so? Professor Crane smiled and pushed up his glasses. Actually, everyone has fears, some people just don't want to admit it. Fear is the most primitive human emotion, and also the most powerful. If you master fear, you can master people's hearts. His tone was calm, yet it sent a chill down Lin Yi's spine. This obsession with fear was exactly like the scarecrow. Lin Yi became even more certain that Professor Crane in front of him was the future scarecrow. Just then, there was a flurry of hurried footsteps from the teaching building. A teenager in a red hoodie, carrying a backpack, ran out, panting, and almost bumped into Professor Crane. Sorry. Professor Crane, I didn't mean to. The teenager quickly apologized. When he looked up, Lin Yi finally saw his face. Brown hair, black-rimmed glasses, and a panicked expression. It was Peter Parker. Peter, you're late again. Professor Crane shook his head helplessly. This is your third time being late this month. If this continues, your participation grade will fail. Sorry, Professor, I woke up late this morning and also ran into traffic. Peter scratched his head, embarrassed, and seeing Lin Yi, he asked curiously, Professor, who is this? This is Gwen's friend, Lin Yi. He's accompanying Gwen to school today, Professor Crane introduced. Hello, my name is Peter Parker. I'm Gwen's classmate, Peter greeted enthusiastically. You're the Lin Yi who saved Gwen, right? Gwen told me about you, she said you're amazing. Hello, Peter, my name is Lin Yi responded with a smile. Finally, he met Peter Parker, the future Spider-Man. I have to rush to class now, Professor, Lin Yi, goodbye. Peter said, then ran into the teaching building like a gust of wind. Professor Klein chuckled and shook his head as he watched Peter's retreating figure. Peter is a very bright boy, but he's too impetuous and always late. He turned to Lin Yi, his gaze becoming serious. Lin Yi, the fear psychology research I just mentioned actually needs some experimental subjects. I see that you're very brave and in excellent physical condition. Would you be willing to assist me with the experiment? I'll pay you a substantial reward, $200 an hour. What do you say? Lin Yi's heart instantly leapt into his throat. Experiment. And such a high reward. Could it be a fear gas experiment? Ding. Detected host generating strong shock plus alert emotions, gaining plus 80 shock points. Current total, 2,780 points. System evaluation. Oh, is the host in trouble? Fear gas experiments are very interesting. If the host agrees, they might unlock the fear resistance skill early, but if they get scared to death, the system won't be responsible. Professor Klein's gaze rested on Lin Yi's face, his eyes behind the gold-rimmed glasses exuding gentleness. If he refused, the janitor job would likely fall through, and his current balance of $17.50 wouldn't last many days. If he agreed, although fear gas sounded terrifying, the system panel showed that his attributes were more than double those of an ordinary person. Even if something unexpected happened, the probability of surviving should not be low. Okay, I agree, Lin Yi looked up. When would be convenient for you? A hint of a smile flashed in Professor Klein's eyes. How about tomorrow afternoon at 4? My lab is in Teaching Building B, room 302. You can just come directly then. Don't worry, the experiment is very safe, just some simple psychological tests, no danger involved. He paused, then added, I'll pay you by the hour, cash or transfer, whichever you prefer. Okay, I'll be there on time tomorrow at 4. Lin Yi nodded, but secretly noted the lab address, deciding to go back tonight and research Professor Klein's papers to prepare in advance. After a few more irrelevant exchanges, Professor Klein received a call and hurriedly left. Ding. Host successfully accepted the Fear Experiment invitation, unlocking hidden quest, first exploration of the Scarecrow Lab. Completing the quest will grant additional shock point rewards. System evaluation. The host is quite brave, daring to go even knowing the other party might be a villain. But if you pee your pants from the fear gas, the system will record it as a dark history. Lin Yi. He strolled for a while longer, checked the time, and seeing it was already 11:50, headed towards the cafeteria. Empire State University's dining hall was large, divided into 2 floors. The first floor had fast food counters, and the second floor was a buffet. It was dismissal time, and students poured in continuously. The cafeteria was bustling with noise, filled with the aroma of food and the sound of conversations. Lin Yi. Over here. As soon as he entered the first floor, Lin Yi heard Gwen's voice. She was sitting at a table by the window, with a salad and a glass of orange juice in front of her. Seeing Lin Yi, she quickly waved. Lin Yi walked over quickly and sat opposite her. Just finished class. Yeah, the second class was a lab session. I spent the whole morning doing protein separation, I'm exhausted. Gwen rubbed her shoulders and handed the menu to Lin Yi. What do you want to eat? It's on me. No, thanks, I'll order myself. Lin Yi quickly waved his hand. Although he was poor now, he didn't want Gwen to always treat him. He took the menu, looked at the prices, and ordered a burger combo, which was much cheaper than at a fast food restaurant and came with a free Coke. While waiting for their food, two boys carrying trays walked over and sat directly at the seats next to them. One of them, with short brown hair and wearing a branded t-shirt, was named Jack, a classmate of Gwen's. The other, wearing framed glasses, was named Tom. He and Jack were roommates, and both had a crush on Gwen, often circling around her. Gwen, how was the lab class this morning? I heard the protein you separated was very pure, and the professor even praised you. Jack said with a smile, his gaze occasionally darting towards Lin Yi. It was all right, just the steps were a bit tedious. Gwen responded politely, clearly not wanting to chat with them much. Tom, however, directly focused his gaze on Lin Yi. Gwen, is this the friend Lin Yi you mentioned? I heard this morning that you even helped him ask Professor Klein about a janitor position. What, can't he find a job? Jack also chimed in, janitor positions are hard to get these days, they're for people without degrees or skills. Lin Yi, what did you do before? Why are you working as a janitor at our school? Their voices weren't quiet, and students at nearby tables all looked over. Gwen's face instantly darkened. Jack, Tom, don't talk like that. Lin Yi just hasn't found a suitable job yet. What's wrong with being a janitor? It's not shameful to earn money through your own labor. We didn't say it was shameful. Tom pushed up his glasses, his tone becoming even more sarcastic. We just think it's a bit of a pity. Gwen, you're so excellent, why do you always hang out with people who are, well, not quite on the same level? What if it affects your studies? Lin Yi took a sip from his Coke cup and calmly asked, you think we're not on the same level because I'm looking for a janitor job? Otherwise. Tom scoffed. We are students of Empire State University, and in the future, we'll be entering big companies like Stark Industries and Oscorp Industries. What about you? Are you going to be a janitor forever? Jack boasted, I even visited Osborne Industries last week. Their biology labs are equipped with the most advanced equipment, and researchers casually work on projects with multi-million-dollar budgets. Lin Yi, have you seen those devices? Do you know how to operate the SDS page gel electrophoresis apparatus used for protein separation? He deliberately brought up technical terms, wanting to embarrass Lin Yi, as he thought Lin Yi, not having attended college, wouldn't understand any of it. Gwen's face flushed with anger, and just as she was about to retort, Lin Yi gently pulled her arm, signaling her not to rush. He looked at Jack and slowly said, SDS page gel electrophoresis apparatus. That's the instrument that denatures proteins with sodium dodecyl sulfate and separates proteins of different molecular weights through polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis, right? When operating it, you need to pay attention to the gel concentration, use high concentration gel for small molecule proteins and low concentration for large molecules, and also control the electrophoresis voltage to avoid overheating which can deform the gel, right? The smile on Jack's face instantly froze. He clearly hadn't expected Lin Yi to be able to say all that. Tom was also stunned for a moment, then sarcastically said, what's the use of knowing the principle? Can you prepare the gel? Do you know the ratio of acrylamide to bisacrylamide? And the pH of the buffer solution? Even a slight error will affect the experimental results. The ratio of acrylamide to bisacrylamide is generally 29:1. Lin Yi took a sip of Coke, his tone still calm. The pH of the separating gel is 8.8, and the stacking gel is 6.8. Because the pH of the stacking gel is lower than the isoelectric point of the protein will be negatively charged and move towards the positive electrode in the electric field. After entering the separating gel, the pH increases, the protein's charge changes, and its migration rate decreases, thus achieving separation. Oh, and you use tris glycine buffer, right? Actually, tris borate buffer works better, with higher resolution, especially when separating large molecule proteins. The surrounding students were all stunned, stopping their chopsticks and looking at Lin Yi. No one had expected that this person, who looked like a poor boy, would know so much biochemistry. Gwen also looked at Lin Yi in surprise, watching him with disbelief. She knew Lin Yi grew up in an orphanage, how could he know so much? Jack's face turned liver red, he opened his mouth, wanting to say something more, but found he couldn't connect. What Lin Yi said were all key points taught by professors in class, and some were even knowledge that only graduate students would encounter. He usually didn't listen carefully in class and had no idea how to refute. Tom also got anxious and quickly changed the subject, wanting to outdo Lin Yi in psychology. Since you understand biochemistry, do you understand psychology? Professor Klein is the best psychology professor at our school. How much do you know about his research on fear? For example, the Milgram experiment. Do you know what the experimental conclusion is? The Milgram experiment, Lin Yi looked up, was an obedience experiment conducted in 1961 by Yale University psychologist Stanley Milgram. Its purpose was to study whether people, under authoritative instructions, would violate their own moral principles and inflict pain on others. The experimental conclusion was that under the pressure of authority, over 65% of participants would administer lethal electric shocks, even if they heard the victim's screams, they would continue to obey instructions. However, this experiment later received a lot of criticism due to ethical issues. Professor Klein should have mentioned it in class, right? He paused, then added, and I've also read Professor Klein's recently published paper, The Impact of Fear on Amygdala Activity, which mentions using functional magnetic resonance imaging to observe brain activity in a state of fear, finding that the activation level of the amygdala is positively correlated with the intensity of fear. However, I think the sample size is a bit small, only 20, and all are college students, so the sample representativeness is insufficient. If people of different age groups and professions could be included, the conclusions would be more reliable. You've read Professor Klein's paper. Tom's eyes widened, his face filled with shock. Professor Klein's paper was published in a core journal, usually only read by graduate students. How could Lin Yi, someone who hadn't even found a job, have read it? The surrounding students could no longer hold back and burst into laughter. Haha, Jack, Tom, you've really shot yourselves in the foot. Lin Yi knows more than you do, and you still have the nerve to mock him. Exactly, you usually act so cocky, but you shut down when you meet someone who actually knows their stuff. The laughter grew louder, and Jack and Tom's faces alternated between red and white. They wished they could find a hole to crawl into. They couldn't sit there any longer, so they picked up their trays and fled in embarrassment. Before leaving, they didn't forget to glare fiercely at Lin Yi. Watching their retreating figures, Gwen couldn't help but laugh, her eyes sparkling. Lin Yi, you're amazing. How do you know so much about biochemistry and psychology? Did you study these before? I used to get bored at the orphanage, so I took these up as hobbies and occasionally read some papers. Lin Yi casually made up an excuse. He couldn't very well say it was because the system had enhanced his intelligence, making him learn things faster, could he? Ding. Detected strong shock plus shame emotions from Jack and Tom, gaining 80x2 equals 160 shock points. Ding. Detected strong shock emotions from 10 surrounding students, gaining 50x10 equals 500 shock points. Ding. Detected strong shock plus admiration emotions from Gwen, gaining 70 shock points. Current total, 3,510 points. System evaluation. Yo, host, you look quite handsome with that intelligence online. But earning shock points just by talking is too slow. If you could perform crushing a metal tray with your bare hands in the cafeteria, I guarantee the shock points would double. Lin Yi ignored the system's complaints, picked up a hamburger, and took a bite. It tasted pretty good, even better than the fast food burgers he'd eaten before. Gwen looked at him and said with a smile, if Jack and Tom dare to mock you again, I'll make them compete with you on professional knowledge. Let's see if they still dare to act so arrogant. The two chatted as they ate, and soon finished lunch. Gwen checked her watch and said, I don't have classes this afternoon. I'm going to intern at Osborne Industries. I applied for the internship last week, and today is my first day. Oscorp Industries. Lin Yi's heart stirred. Norman Osborn, the precursor to the Green Goblin, founder of Oscorp Industries, and one of the future supervillains. However, he didn't show it on his face, only nodding, "That's great. Oscorp Industries is very strong in the biological field. You'll definitely learn a lot during your internship." "Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it," Gwen said excitedly. "I applied to the gene research department. I heard they're researching a drug that can repair gene mutations. If it succeeds, it could cure many genetic diseases." Lin Yi looked at her excited expression, unable to bring himself to tell her about the darkness behind Oscorp Industries. He knew that saying anything now would only worry Gwen, and he wasn't sure if Norman Osborn in this mixed universe would become the Green Goblin like in the original story. "Then be careful on your way, and if anything happens during your internship, remember to call me," Lin Yi said. "Okay, I will." Gwen nodded, picked up her bag, "Then I'm off, see you tonight. Are you going to wander around school this afternoon, or go somewhere else?" "I'm going to explore downtown New York this afternoon," Lin Yi said. "Then be careful. Downtown New York is crowded, especially Times Square. There are a lot of pickpockets, so keep your belongings safe," Gwen warned, then took out $50 from her bag and handed it to Lin Yi. "You don't have much money on you. Take this, buy something to eat, or use it for the subway." "No, thanks, I have my own money," Lin Yi quickly declined. "Just take it. Consider it my thanks for helping me scare off Jack and Tom today." Gwen shoved the money into his hand, turned and ran. "I'm going, see you tonight." Watching Gwen's back disappear at the cafeteria entrance, Lin Yi felt helpless, as if he was being a kept man. Around 3 in the afternoon, Lin Yi arrived at Times Square. The crowd surged, huge electronic billboards flashed with colorful lights everywhere, and people in cartoon costumes were posing for photos with tourists. Street performers were breakdancing, and the lively scene was dazzling. He took out his phone, wanting to take a few photos, when he suddenly heard a scream. "Run! There's a monster! Help! Call the police!" The crowd suddenly became chaotic, scattering to both sides. Lin Yi looked up and saw a man in a black jacket sprinting down the street, followed by 2 unusual figures. One woman wore a black leather suit, had short white hair, and could control lightning with her hands. The other man was tall, covered in blue fur, like a beast, and ran incredibly fast. "It's a mutant!" someone shouted. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. The woman controlling lightning wasn't that Storm from the X-Men. And the man with blue fur was Beast, Hank McCoy. Why were they here? Just then, the man in the black jacket suddenly stopped, turned around, and raised his hands. The metal guardrail on the street suddenly broke with a clatter, and flew towards Storm and Beast. He was also a mutant, with the ability to control metal. "Watch out!" Storm shouted, waving her hands. A bolt of lightning struck down from the sky, hitting the flying metal guardrail. The guardrail was instantly split in 2, falling to the ground with a loud bang. Beast took the opportunity to rush forward, grabbing the black-jacketed man's arm, trying to subdue him. But the man was very strong. With a violent swing, he actually threw Beast away. Beast crashed into a nearby billboard, which cracked with a crunch. Storm, while controlling lightning to attack, shouted to the surrounding people, "Everyone, get out of the way, don't get caught in this." The surrounding people retreated in fear, hiding in front of the shops. Lin Yi stood behind the crowd, watching the battle unfolding, his heart hesitating. Should he help? Storm and Beast were righteous mutants, and the man in the black jacket was a villain. Helping them subdue the villain would not only earn him shock value but also build good relations with the X-Men, possibly gaining their help in the future. Moreover, the system panel showed that his current strength was 15, speed 14, and endurance 16, much stronger than an ordinary person. Dealing with this metal-controlling mutant should not be a problem. Just then, the man in the black jacket suddenly manipulated the metal fragments on the ground, shooting them towards the crowd. He wanted to use hostages to threaten Storm. "Watch out!" Lin Yi shouted, rushing forward and pushing a little girl next to him out of the way. The metal fragments grazed his arm, tearing a gash in his clothes. "Kid, you're asking for it." The man in the black jacket saw Lin Yi ruin his plan, roared furiously, and manipulated more metal fragments to shoot at Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless, quickly dodging the metal fragments with his 14 points of speed. He knew he couldn't keep dodging. He had to subdue this man quickly. His metal manipulation ability was too dangerous, and if it dragged on, more people would get hurt. Lin Yi stared at the black-jacketed man's opening, suddenly accelerated, and charged towards him. Seeing this, the man quickly controlled a metal pipe to smash at Lin Yi. Lin Yi bent down to dodge, and at the same time, reached out and grabbed the man's wrist. His strength was considerably greater than the man's, and the man immediately felt a sharp pain in his wrist, unable to control metal anymore. Ah! The man screamed, trying to shake off Lin Yi's hand, but Lin Yi's hand was like an iron clamp, holding him tightly, rendering him immobile. Storm and Beast also reacted, rushing forward. Beast pinned the man's shoulders, while Storm bound his hands, preventing him from using his abilities. Finally got you. Beast panted, looking at the subdued man, a smile on his face. The surrounding crowd erupted in cheers, gathering around Lin Yi, their eyes full of shock. No one expected that this seemingly ordinary young man could subdue a mutant with superpowers. Ding! Detected strong shock emotion from Storm, gained plus 100 shock points. Ding! Detected strong shock emotion from Beast, gained plus 100 shock points. Ding! Detected strong shock emotion from 50 passers-by, gained plus 50 times 50 equals 2,500 shock points. Ding! Cumulative shock points reached 5,000, Superman Gene Awakening degree increased to 3%. Basic attribute panel updated. Strength, 18 plus 3. Speed, 17 plus 3. Endurance, 19 plus 3. Reaction, 16 plus 3. Self-healing, 14 plus 3. Unlocked new function. Super hearing beginner can hear subtle sounds within 50 meters. System evaluation. Not bad, not bad. Host has finally learned to actively cause trouble. 3% awakening is barely acceptable, but against a true supervillain, you're still like a weak chicken. Keep working hard to earn shock points. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief and released the man's wrist. Storm walked over, looking at Lin Yi with gratitude in her eyes. Thank you. If it weren't for you, we might not have caught him, and more people would have been injured. You're welcome. I just did what I had to do. Lin Yi smiled. You're the X-Men, right? I've seen you on the news before. Yes, I'm Aurora Munro. You can call me Storm. Storm nodded, then pointed to Beast next to her. This is Hank McCoy. We're all part of the X-Men, and we've been trying to stop Magneto's schemes. Lin Yi rubbed his nose. I'm Lin Yi. I don't really have any special identity. Beast also extended his hand in a friendly manner. Thank you, Lin Yi. Your skills are excellent, better than many trained agents. Lin Yi shook hands with Beast and said with a smile, I was just lucky. Storm said, actually, we're still tracking other mutants connected to Magneto. They plan to assassinate Senator Kelly at next week's government meeting. Senator Kelly has been pushing for the Mutant Registration Act. Magneto wants to assassinate him to completely pit humans and mutants against each other and spark a war. She paused, looking at Lin Yi. We're short-handed. If you see any suspicious mutants in New York City, such as people who can control fire, turn invisible, or have other special abilities, could you contact us promptly? Here's my contact information. Storm took out a business card from her pocket and handed it to Lin Yi. The business card had a lightning bolt logo printed on it, along with her phone number and email address. Okay, I'll keep an eye out. Lin Yi took the business card and put it in his pocket. If I see anyone suspicious, I'll call you immediately. Thank you so much. Storm said gratefully. We still need to take this criminal back to the X-Mansion, so we'll be leaving now. If you ever encounter any danger in the future, you can also call us, and we'll do our best to help you. With that, Storm and Beast escorted the man in the black jacket and quickly left Times Square. Fearing they might cause more chaos, they deliberately chose a less crowded alley. The crowds in Times Square gradually returned to their usual hustle and bustle, as if the chaos of the mutant chase had been just a brief interlude. Lin Yi turned to look for a convenience store to buy a bottle of water when a woman's voice, tinged with a smile and a hint of elusive laziness in its trailing notes, suddenly came from behind him. Kid, your moves were pretty good just now. Lin Yi spun around abruptly and saw a pair of deep, dark eyes. The woman's golden wavy hair cascaded over her shoulders, making her skin appear even fairer. She wore a burgundy silk blouse and black trousers, and carried a vintage leather handbag, looking like a lady of high society who had just stepped out of a fancy dinner party. But Lin Yi's intuition was screaming, the aura around this woman was subtly similar to that of the metal-controlling mutant from earlier. Who are you? Lin Yi subtly took half a step back, his right hand quietly clenching, ready to deal with any sudden situation. The woman chuckled softly, took 2 steps forward, and teased, "Don't be so tense, I won't eat you. How about we find a place to chat? There's a nice coffee shop up ahead, I'll treat you to a coffee." As she spoke, she pointed to a coffee shop not far away with a warm yellow sign, where exquisite cakes were displayed in the glass window, looking very quiet. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, but I don't have money to pay." The woman was amused by his directness. "Don't worry, it's my treat." The two walked side by side into the coffee shop and found a corner by the window to sit down. When the waiter came to take their order, the woman skillfully ordered a cup of Blue Mountain coffee, then asked Lin Yi, "What would you like to drink?" "Just a cup of hot milk, please, thank you," Lin Yi said. He hadn't fully adapted to the coffee taste of this world yet, hot milk was more palatable. After the waiter left, Lin Yi got straight to the point. "Are you one of Magneto's people? The metal-controlling mutant from earlier, he was your companion, wasn't he? Why didn't you save him?" The woman picked up the lemon water on the table and took a sip. "It seems you're not foolish. But it doesn't matter, 3 blocks ahead, there are already Brotherhood members waiting to rescue him. Storm and Beast won't be able to take him away." She paused, her gaze falling on Lin Yi, filled with scrutiny. "My name is Raven. You can call me Mystique." Mystique. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. It was her indeed. Both DC and Marvel characters had appeared, and Mystique, one of the core antagonists of the X-Men, was also here. This mixed universe was truly getting livelier. Ding. Host confirmed Mystique's identity, generating moderate shock emotion, triggering a chain reaction, gaining plus 70 shock points. Current total, 3,580 points. System evaluation. Host, your reaction time is quite long, isn't it? You should have guessed it was Mystique from her aura. But being able to chat calmly is progress. It's just your vigilance isn't enough. Be careful not to be sold out and still help count the money. Lin Yi ignored the system's nagging and looked at Mystique. "You're looking for me for more than just treating me to a cup of milk, right?" "Smart." Mystique smiled, leaning slightly forward, her tone becoming serious. "I saw your skills just now. Your strength and speed far exceed ordinary people. Although I don't know if you're a mutant, the abilities you possess shouldn't be wasted. Magneto's Brotherhood exists to protect people like us who have special abilities." She began to elaborate on the Brotherhood's philosophy. "Humans have always feared us, ostracized us, and even wanted to use us as experimental subjects. Once the Mutant Registration Act passes, we will lose our freedom, monitored and controlled by humans. What the Brotherhood wants to do is to resist this injustice, to let humans know our power, and to make them dare not bully us anymore." Lin Yi listened quietly, without interrupting. He knew that part of what Mystique said was true. Human fear of mutants had indeed caused many tragedies. However, the Brotherhood's extreme methods had also harmed many innocent people. So, Mystique looked at Lin Yi, her eyes filled with anticipation. "I want to invite you to join the Brotherhood. Magneto greatly appreciates capable individuals. As long as you join, we can provide you with everything you desire. Money, status, a safe home, and even help you develop more powerful abilities. You won't have to struggle for survival anymore, or endure others' disdain." Lin Yi thought, well, she's starting to paint a pretty picture. I fight so that others don't have to. Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, Warbringer, 2017. Lin Yi picked up the hot milk that had just been served, took a sip, and then slowly said, "Thank you for your invitation, but I don't want to join any organization for now. First, I'm not a mutant, I don't have the inherent abilities you do. It's more like something I acquired later. Second, right now I just want to find a janitorial job at a university. Joining an organization is too far-fetched for me." He paused, then added, "And to be honest, I don't really like extreme methods. Resisting injustice is fine, but harming innocent people is wrong." Mystique's expression darkened slightly. "Are you sure you want to refuse? Humans can't give you what you want, only the Brotherhood can protect you. If one day you are hunted by humans as a monster, don't regret your decision today. Lin Yi, however, didn't panic at all. Instead, he smiled. Whether I regret it or not, we can talk about that later. But Ms. Raven, shouldn't we discuss the coffee bill first? I just told you I didn't bring any money. His directness made Mystique stunned for a moment. You are quite an interesting person. Don't worry, I'll pay for the coffee. Just then, the coffee shop door opened, and a breeze swept in. Lin Yi looked up and saw a woman walk in. She was wearing a beige trench coat, her long black hair cascaded behind her, with slightly curled ends. Her deep blue eyes were as profound as the ocean, and her posture was tall and straight, each step exuding a sense of calm power. The woman walked directly to their table, her gaze falling on Mystique, and her tone was gentle. Miss, I believe I just heard you threatening this gentleman. The moment Mystique saw the woman, her expression changed. She had seen photos of this woman in the news and heard legends about her. She shed her previous languor, stood up, and looked at the woman warily. Diana Prince. That's me. Diana nodded, then turned her gaze to Lin Yi. Sir, are you alright? Do you need any help? Lin Yi looked at the Wonder Woman in front of him, his heart uncontrollably speeding up. Diana. She was standing right in front of him, even more charming than he had imagined. Ding. Detected host seeing Wonder Woman, strong shock emotion generated, shock value plus 120 points. Ding. Detected Mystique generating shock plus vigilance emotions, shock value plus 80 points. Current total, 3,780 points. System evaluation. Oh, is the host seeing an idol? His eyes are glued. But Wonder Woman is much more reliable than Mystique, hurry and cling to her. Lin Yi said with a smile, I'm fine, thank you, Ms. Prince. Mystique looked at Diana, knowing she was no match for her. Legend had it that this woman possessed godlike power, and the Brotherhood did not want to conflict with her for now. She gave Lin Yi a deep look, dropped a phrase, if you're interested, remember to find me, and then turned and quickly left the coffee shop. Hey, Ms. Raven, you haven't paid yet. Lin Yi called out to her retreating back, but only received Mystique's response of quickening her pace. He smiled helplessly, then turned to Diana. It seems I'll have to figure out how to pay for coffee today. Diana also smiled, pulled out the chair Mystique had just occupied, and sat down. She waved to the waiter. The bill for that lady, and this gentleman's milk, please put it all on my tab. Of course, madam. The waiter nodded quickly. Lin Yi felt a little embarrassed. Thank you, Ms. Prince, you've gone to a lot of trouble. You're welcome. Diana looked at Lin Yi, her eyes filled with appreciation. What you said just now was very good. Resisting injustice is right, but you can't harm the innocent. You are very brave, remaining calm even when facing Mystique's threats. She paused, then smiled, and you are indeed a handsome man. Praised as handsome by Wonder Woman, Lin Yi's cheeks flushed slightly. He scratched his head. You're also more beautiful than I imagined, I mean, more elegant. I've seen reports about you in the news before, but I didn't expect you to be so special. Diana smiled, bringing up their previous conversation. I overheard your conversation with Mystique at the coffee shop entrance. You have superpowers, yet you're looking for a janitorial job, which I find a bit incredible. I can't help it. Lin Yi spread his hands, saying helplessly, I just arrived in New York not long ago, with no identity or background. I can only start with simple jobs. Although the janitor's salary isn't high, it's at least stable. Diana was silent for a few seconds, then suddenly said, the museum where I work is currently hiring an assistant. The main responsibilities are organizing archaeological artifacts and assisting researchers with data archiving. The salary is much higher than a janitor's, and the working environment is also good. If you're interested, I can discuss it with the curator and recommend you for an interview. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Really? Thank you so much. I've studied computers before, so organizing data and archiving should be something I can do well. Computer skills are exactly what we need, Diana nodded. The museum is currently digitizing artifacts and needs someone who understands computers to help. However, I need to speak with the curator first. Can I give you an answer tomorrow? Of course. Thank you so much, Ms. Prince. Lin Yi was a little excited. He had been worried about whether he could even get the janitor job, and now he had a better option, and it was even at the museum where Wonder Woman worked. This was simply an unexpected delight. The two continued to chat, from the weather in New York to the work at the museum. Diana brought up a recent matter. Oh, by the way, the FBI recently sent a strange stone to the museum. The stone is carved with Latin, and it's said to have been unearthed from an ancient ruin. The FBI told us that this stone has the ability to grant wishes, and they asked us to help research it. A wish-granting stone. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He immediately thought of the DC storyline. That stone was the Dreamstone. As long as you made a wish to the stone, the wish would come true, but at the cost of losing your most precious possession. What's wrong? Diana noticed Lin Yi's expression change. Nothing. Lin Yi quickly covered up. Ms. Prince, please take my advice. It's best not to touch that stone, and especially don't try to make a wish. It can indeed grant wishes, but it will make you pay a great price, possibly your most precious things, such as health, abilities, or even memories. Diana looked at Lin Yi in surprise. How do you know this? The FBI just delivered the stone, and the news hasn't been made public yet. Lin Yi knew he had let something slip, so he quickly found an excuse and said with a smile, actually, my superpower has a little extra effect. I can foresee some bad things. When I heard you mention the wishing stone just now, I felt a bad aura, which is why I warned you. But Diana didn't doubt him. She had met many people with special abilities, and foreseeing the future wasn't impossible. She nodded and said seriously, I understand. Thank you for the warning. I'll tell the curator not to study that stone for now, and I'll also make sure no one touches it. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Diana believed him, otherwise, if someone had actually made a wish, the consequences would have been unimaginable. They chatted for a while longer. Lin Yi checked the time, it was already past 5 in the afternoon. Gwen's internship should be ending soon, and he had promised to pick her up from Oscorp Industries. Excuse me, Miss Prince, I have to go now. My friend is interning at Oscorp Industries, and I promised to pick her up after work. Lin Yi stood up and picked up his jacket. Oscorp Industries. Diana also stood up. Coincidentally, I have some business there too. It's on my way, so I'll drive you over. Really? That would be too much trouble for you. Lin Yi said, surprised. Diana smiled, it's no trouble. Let's go. The two walked out of the cafe. Diana's car was parked by the roadside, a vintage black Chevrolet. Its body was polished to a shine, looking very old-fashioned yet well-maintained. Diana opened the car door and made a, please, gesture, get in. The car slowly drove away from Times Square, heading towards Oscorp Industries. Lin Yi looked at Diana, who was concentrating on driving, and felt that strengthening his power was an urgent matter. Ding. Detected host strong determination, triggering the system's encouragement mechanism. You have gained an additional +50 shock value. Current total, 3,830 points. System evaluation. The host finally has some ambition. But determination alone isn't enough. Earning shock value to increase gene awakening is the real priority. Next time you encounter a villain, don't just hide, go fight them, and the shock value will come. Lin Yi ignored the system's complaints and turned to look out the window. The Oscorp Industries building was already visible in the distance, its glass curtain wall sparkling in the setting sun. He took out his phone and sent a message to Gwen. I'm almost at the entrance of Oscorp Industries. Are you off work yet? Soon. Gwen's reply came. Just got off, I'm waiting for you at the entrance. How are you so fast? Did you take the subway? Lin Yi smiled and replied. No, a friend drove me. I'll introduce you in a bit. Putting down his phone, Lin Yi looked at Diana beside him, wondering what Gwen's reaction would be when she saw Wonder Woman. In front of Oscorp Industries' glass doors, Gwen, with her backpack on, stood on tiptoes, peering towards the intersection. The golden sunlight of the setting sun fell on her blonde hair, like a warm glaze. When she saw Diana's black Chevrolet slowly pull up, her eyes instantly lit up, and she quickly ran over. Lin Yi. Gwen had just called out his name when her gaze fell on Diana, who was getting out of the passenger seat. Her steps suddenly halted, her mouth slightly agape, and her face was filled with disbelief. You are Miss Diana Prince. The superhero. I've seen you on the news. Diana had just locked the car. Hearing this, she turned around and showed a gentle smile. Little girl, you know me. Of course I know you. Gwen excitedly walked forward, unconsciously clutching her backpack straps. I saw on the news that you participated in fighting crime and even published papers on ancient Greek civilization. I really admire you. Can you give me an autograph? As she spoke, she hastily pulled out a notebook and pen from her backpack, handing them over with both hands, her eyes full of anticipation. Lin Yi stood by, watching Gwen's excited demeanor, and couldn't help but smile. Usually calm and rational, Gwen was surprisingly thrilled when she met her idol. Diana took the notebook and pen, smiled, and nodded, of course. She lowered her head and wrote in elegant script in the notebook. As she handed it back to Gwen, her gaze shifted between Lin Yi and Gwen. Are you two a couple? You look very well matched. No. Gwen and Lin Yi simultaneously refuted. Gwen's cheeks instantly flushed. She quickly waved her hands. We're just friends. I just asked Lin Yi to accompany me to my internship. Lin Yi was also a bit embarrassed, scratching his head. Miss Prince, you misunderstood. I'm temporarily staying at Gwen's house. We're just ordinary friends. Diana looked at their flustered expressions and smiled even more gently. I apologize, I misunderstood. But you two do seem very compatible. She checked the time. I still have things to attend to, so I won't bother you two. Lin Yi, I'll talk to the curator about the museum work tomorrow. I'll call you when I have news. Okay, thank you, Miss Prince. Lin Yi quickly thanked her. Diana waved to Gwen, then turned and drove away. Gwen watched the car disappear into the traffic, still holding the notebook with an excited expression. Oh my goodness, I actually got Diana's autograph. She's even prettier than on the news, and her aura is just incredible. Yes, she is very special, Lin Yi said with a smile, but in his heart, he thought of the wishing stone Diana had mentioned, secretly hoping that the stone wouldn't cause any trouble. The two walked along the street towards the previously agreed upon burger joint. Gwen was still constantly flipping through Diana's autograph, muttering, I need to keep this notebook safe. Maybe I'll even get to see Miss Prince again someday. Oh, right, Gwen suddenly remembered something and looked up at Lin Yi. My dad just messaged me. He said the police station has an operation tonight to catch a wanted criminal, so he won't be home for dinner. He told us to eat out and not wait for him. Police operation. Is it dangerous? Lin Yi subconsciously asked. It shouldn't be dangerous. My dad said it's just a routine arrest, Gwen said casually. He's been a police officer for so many years, he's seen it all. Don't worry. Lin Yi nodded, and as they chatted, they soon arrived at the burger joint. They took the same window seat as last time. Gwen ordered a salad and lemon tea, while Lin Yi ordered a burger and fries. While waiting for their food, Lin Yi looked at Gwen across from him, and a strange feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. Gwen was looking down at her phone, a faint smile on her lips. The setting sun shone through the glass window onto her profile, and her long eyelashes cast a faint shadow under her eyelids, making her look exceptionally gentle. Gwen was the first warm person he met after transmigrating to this world. She not only helped him find a place to live but also helped him find a job, and even stood up to protect him the first time he encountered trouble. Lin Yi looked at her and silently made a decision in his heart. Ding. Detected host strong romantic feelings, triggering a special system prompt. Capturing important characters can increase gene awakening bonus. Go, host. System evaluation. The host has finally caught on. But ideas alone aren't enough. Quickly do more things to make Gwen's heart flutter, like heroically saving her. You can earn shock value and gain favor, killing two birds with one stone. Lin Yi. Just then, a loud boom. The burger joint's glass wall was suddenly shattered by a black car, sending fragments flying. Screams instantly echoed throughout the entire restaurant. Lin Yi reacted incredibly fast. Almost at the same time the shattering sound occurred, he pulled Gwen under the table, shielding her with his body. Don't make a sound. Lin Yi whispered in Gwen's ear. Gwen's face turned pale with fright. She tightly gripped Lin Yi's arm and nodded. The car stopped in the center of the restaurant. The car doors opened, and four masked thugs in black clothes jumped out of the car, holding assault rifles. One fired a shot at the ceiling. Everyone, be quiet. Hand over the money. The customers in the restaurant were terrified, huddling on the floor with their heads in their hands, their cries and screams mixing together. One of the bandits walked to the cashier, pointing a gun at the cashier. Open the cash register. Hurry up. Another bandit patrolled the restaurant with his gun, his eyes lighting up when they scanned Linyi and Gwen hiding under a table. He quickly walked over. Come out. Don't hide. Linyi tightly shielded Gwen, his mind racing. His current strength was 18, and speed 17, dealing with ordinary thugs wouldn't be a problem. Just as he was about to make his move, a whooshing sound suddenly came from outside the window, and a red figure swung in from the air, kicking the bandit in the back. Whoa, looks like I arrived just in time. Spider-Man, Peter Parker, landed on the ground, striking a cool pose, his tone carrying his usual playful sarcasm. Guys, robbing a bank is old news. Robbing a burger joint. Your taste is really bad. The bandits hadn't expected to encounter Spider-Man and immediately panicked. The leader roared, shoot. Take him down. Bullets flew towards Peter, but he was incredibly agile, dodging back and forth across the restaurant with his webs, occasionally shooting webs to entangle the bandits. Guns. Hey, aim carefully. You won't hit me like that. Why don't you go practice your shooting? One of the bandits was enraged by Peter's taunts. While Peter was entangling another person's gun, he quietly circled behind Peter, raised his gun, aimed at his back, and pulled the trigger. Watch out. Gwen couldn't help but shout. Linyi also reacted quickly, grabbing a nearby chair and throwing it at the bandit. The chair struck the bandit's arm with a whoosh, and the gun fired with a bang, but missed, the bullet grazing Peter's shoulder and leaving a bullet hole in the wall. Peter looked back, giving Linyi a thumbs up. Thanks, bro. You've got good moves. Linyi didn't say anything, seizing the opportunity to rush forward and punch the bandit in the stomach. The bandit grunted, falling to the ground. Linyi took his gun and threw it far away. The remaining bandits, seeing the situation was dire, tried to escape in a car. Peter immediately shot webs to entangle the car's wheels. The car screeched to a halt, its tires smoking. Peter rushed over and quickly subdued the remaining bandits, tying them together with webs. The restaurant gradually quieted down. Customers got up from the floor, looking at Spider-Man and Linyi with expressions of shock and gratitude. Ding! Detected 20 customers in the vicinity experiencing strong shock emotions, gaining plus 50x20 equals 1000 shock points. Ding! Detected Gwen experiencing strong shock plus worry emotions, gaining plus 80 shock points. Ding! Detected Spider-Man experiencing moderate shock emotions, gaining plus 60 shock points. Current total, 4,970 points. System evaluation. Host has finally learned to actively cooperate with superheroes. However, the act of throwing the chair just now wasn't cool enough. Next time, you can try directly smashing the gun with your fist, the shock points will definitely be higher. Peter walked up to Linyi and extended his hand. Thank you so much just now. If it weren't for you, I might have been shot. I'm Spider-Man, you can call me Peter. You can call me Spider-Man. He almost revealed his real name and quickly corrected himself. Linyi shook his hand, smiling. My name is Linyi. No need to thank me, it was just a small favor. Peter's gaze fell on Gwen beside them. Seeing Gwen looking at Linyi worriedly and even reaching out to brush dust off Linyi's clothes, a subtle hint of disappointment flashed in his eyes. He knew Gwen only had a platonic friendship with him, but seeing Gwen getting close to other boys still made him feel a little uncomfortable. Well, I'll be going then, I have other things to deal with. Peter quickly said, waving to Linyi and Gwen, shooting a web, and swinging out through the broken glass wall, quickly disappearing down the street. Gwen looked at Peter's retreating figure and said, puzzled, his voice sounds a bit familiar, like I've heard it somewhere before. Linyi chuckled inwardly. Gwen didn't know that Spider-Man was her classmate, Peter Parker, but he didn't expose it, only saying, maybe he really had an emergency. Spider-Man must be very busy normally. Just then, police sirens could be heard from a distance, getting closer and closer. George rushed into the burger joint with a team of police officers. Seeing the mess and the tied-up bandits, his face darkened. He quickly walked up to Gwen. Gwen. Are you alright? Are you hurt? I'm fine, Dad. Gwen shook her head, pointing at Linyi. Linyi and Spider-Man saved me. George looked at Lin Yi, his eyes filled with gratitude and relief. Lin Yi, thank you again for protecting Gwen. You're welcome, Chief. I just did what I had to do, Lin Yi said with a smile. George arranged for the police to process the scene and take statements from the customers. After a while, he walked over to Lin Yi and Gwen, his face serious. Gwen, Lin Yi, I just received a notification that there was a riot at Arkham Asylum, and all the criminals inside have escaped. I need to go provide support, and I might not be able to come home tonight. You two, finish your meal and go straight home, lock your doors and windows, and don't go out, understand? Arkham Asylum. Lin Yi's heart sank. He knew what Arkham Asylum was. It was where the most dangerous criminals in the DC universe were held, including the Joker, Harley Quinn, and so on. They were all formidable individuals. A police chief alone might not be enough. Lin Yi already considered George his future father-in-law, and he couldn't let anything happen to George. Chief, the criminals at Arkham Asylum are very dangerous, you need to be careful. Lin Yi said. George patted his shoulder and smiled. Don't worry, I've been a police officer for so many years, what danger haven't I seen? You two go home quickly, don't make me worry. Gwen also said worriedly, Dad, you must be careful, and remember to call me if anything happens. Okay, I will. George nodded, then turned and shouted to the police, let's go. Lin Yi, let's go home quickly too. Gwen tugged on Lin Yi's arm. Lin Yi took a deep breath, turned to Gwen, and said seriously, Gwen, you go home by yourself first, lock your doors and windows, and don't open the door for anyone. I have something to do, I need to go near Arkham Asylum. Why are you going to Arkham Asylum? Gwen looked at him in surprise. It's very dangerous, Dad even told us not to go out. I know it's dangerous, but your dad is going to provide support, and I'm a little worried about him, Lin Yi explained. I won't get close to the asylum, I'll just look around nearby. If anything happens, I can help. Don't worry, I'm capable of protecting myself, nothing will happen. His gene awakening was almost at 4% now, and his abilities were stronger than before. Even if he encountered danger, he was confident he could handle it. Gwen looked into Lin Yi's eyes, knowing she couldn't persuade him, so she just nodded. Then you must be careful, remember to call me if anything happens, and don't overexert yourself. Okay, I will. Lin Yi smiled, ruffled her hair. You go home quickly, I'll walk you to the intersection first. Lin Yi walked Gwen to the intersection, and after watching her enter Forest Hills, he turned and hailed a taxi. After getting in, he told the driver, Sir, to the vicinity of Arkham Asylum, as close as possible. The taxi slowly drove away from Queens, heading towards Arkham Asylum. The sky outside the window grew darker and darker, and streetlights lit up one by one. Ding. Detected host experiencing strong protective desire, triggering system encouragement mechanism, gaining an additional plus 70 shock points. Current total, 5,040 points. System evaluation. Host's future father-in-law protection plan is quite proactive. However, Arkham's criminals are not to be trifled with. If the host is targeted by the Joker, it will be troublesome. Of course, if you can defeat the Joker, the shock points can directly reach 10,000. Lin Yi looked out the window, ignoring the system's teasing. The night ahead was destined to be anything but peaceful. You are all prisoners, what you call normal is just a cage in your mind. Jerome Velasca, Gotham. Police sirens pierced the Brooklyn night sky as a dozen black police cars sped in a line down the dilapidated road leading to Arkham Asylum. George Stacy sat in the passenger seat of the lead police car, clutching his walkie-talkie, his brow deeply furrowed. His heart hadn't settled since he received the riot notification. What kind of place was Arkham Asylum? It was a living hell that housed the most dangerous criminals on the entire East Coast. Every escapee inside was enough to strike fear into ordinary police officers. All units, stay alert. Upon arrival at Arkham, immediately seal all exits. Team 1, search the main building with me. Team 2, secure the perimeter. Team 3, assist medical personnel on standby. George ordered in a deep voice over the walkie-talkie. He had been a police officer for 20 years, rising from street patrolman to Queens precinct captain. What kind of dangerous situations hadn't he seen? Yet, facing the Arkham escapees this time, he still felt uncertain, especially with the rumor that the Joker was also on the list of escapees from this riot. The police cars slowly pulled to a stop in front of the main gate of Arkham Asylum. The gray-white building stood like a dormant beast in the desolate outskirts, its walls riddled with bullet holes and cracks. The rusty iron gate lay on the ground, clearly forcibly destroyed by the escapees. The night wind blew, rustling the dry leaves and torn prisoner uniform scraps on the ground, making a shush sound that, combined with the occasional eerie laughter from inside the building, sent shivers down one's spine. "Captain, something's not right inside. It's too quiet," Officer Miller said, walking up to George after getting out of the car, lowering his voice, his gun already cocked. "Normally, after a riot, it should be chaotic, but now there's not even a soul. Could it be an ambush?" George nodded. "You're right, be careful, follow me in." He drew his service weapon from his waist, disengaged the safety, and was the first to enter Arkham's main building. The lobby was a mess, the reception desk overturned, papers scattered everywhere, the surveillance cameras on the wall smashed to pieces, and a few drops of dark red blood remained on the floor. "Team 1, search the first floor with me. Team 2, search the second floor. Team 3, guard the stairwell. Report immediately if you find any escapees, do not act without orders." George commanded over the walkie-talkie, leading 5 officers to slowly search down the corridor. Most of the cells on both sides of the corridor were empty, some iron bars bent, others blown open. Prisoner uniforms were thrown on the ground, some still stained with dirt, indicating that the escapees had been gone for some time. "Captain, something's going on here," an officer suddenly shouted, pointing to the hall at the end of the corridor. George hurried over, only to see the hall door ajar, with a faint, drip-drip, sound coming from inside, like liquid falling to the ground. "Prepare to breach." George gestured, and the officers immediately raised their guns, fanning out. He violently pushed open the hall door, and just as he was about to order a search, a soft click sounded under his foot, the sound of a mechanism triggering. "Ha ha ha ha. Welcome to my party, Captain." Piercing maniacal laughter suddenly came from the ceiling. George looked up to see the Joker, Jerome, hanging from a ventilation duct, wearing his signature purple suit, his face painted a ghastly white, his red lips stretched into an exaggerated grin, toying with a kerosene lighter in his hand. Another figure emerged from the vent beside him, Harley Quinn, in a red and black tight-fitting suit, with pigtails, holding a baseball bat. She winked at George, her voice sickly sweet. "Oh, Captain George, long time no see, your team still looks so fragile." Joker. Harley Quinn. George's face darkened. Just as he was about to order them to open fire, the iron door of the hall suddenly slammed shut with a clang, locking from the outside. Immediately after, several tin barrels in the corner began to gurgle and bubble, and a pungent smell of biogas and gasoline permeated the air. "Don't shoot." The Joker jumped down from the ventilation duct, landing in the center of the hall. "This place is full of surprises. With just one spark, the entire hall will turn into fireworks bang." He made an exaggerated explosion gesture, and Harley shrieked in response, as if enjoying an amusing performance. The officers immediately panicked, unsure whether to raise or lower their guns. If they fired, a spark could ignite the biogas, and everyone would be doomed. George forced himself to calm down, gripping his gun, staring at the Joker. "Jerome, what do you want? Let us go, and I can guarantee you a fair trial." "A fair trial?" The Joker laughed as if he had heard the biggest joke, doubling over with laughter. "Captain, are you senile? Arkham's trial is to lock me in a small cell and listen to those doctors babble about me being mentally ill. I'm not interested. What I want today is a grand, farewell performance, and you are the stars." As he spoke, he raised the lighter and walked towards George step by step, his eyes full of madness. "Tell me, what would the people of New York think if the Queen's precinct captain and his men all turned to charcoal? Would they feel that they can live perfectly well without police protection?" "Stop." Just as the Joker was about to open the lighter, a figure suddenly jumped down from the ventilation duct and grabbed the Joker's wrist. Lin Yi gasped for breath, his forehead covered in sweat. When he arrived near Arkham by taxi, he heard the laughter from the hall, so he quickly climbed up the drainpipe on the outer wall, pried open the vent, and squeezed in, just in time to stop the Joker. The Joker froze for a moment, then laughed even more wildly. "You dare to ruin my fun. Do you know who I am?" I'll ask you when you're in prison. Lin Yi tightened his grip, and the Joker's wrist made a creaking sound. He grimaced in pain, and the lighter fell to the ground with a clatter. Lin Yi kicked the lighter away, then turned and shouted to George, "Captain, tell everyone to open the windows quickly." George reacted, immediately ordering, "Everyone, open the windows." The officers quickly retreated, moving away from the gasoline-filled tin barrels, and opened the previously sealed windows to allow the biogas to vent out. Ding! Detecting Lin Yi preventing the Joker's detonation, triggering a key event, gaining plus 200 shock value. Ding! Detecting strong shock emotions from George and 5 officers, gaining plus 80 times 5 equals 400 shock value. Ding! Cumulative shock value reached 5,640 points, Superman Gene Awakening increased to 4%. Basic Attribute Panel updated. Strength, 21 plus 3. Speed, 20 plus 3. Stamina, 22 plus 3. Reaction, 19 plus 3. Self-healing, 17 plus 3. New function unlocked. Super Jump Basic, can jump 5 meters high, 10 meters distance. System evaluation. Host's reaction was quick this time. However, dealing with a lunatic like the Joker, strength alone isn't enough. Next time, remember to bring some weapons, don't go in empty-handed. I am Iron Man. Tony Stark, Avengers 4, Endgame. Lin Yi ignored the system's prompt. He pushed hard, and the Joker stumbled back a few steps, bumping into Harley. Harley immediately raised her baseball bat and swung it at Lin Yi's head. "How dare you hit my puddin'? I'll kill you." Lin Yi ducked, grabbed Harley's wrist, and twisted it gently. The baseball bat clattered to the ground. He swiftly pulled out a pair of handcuffs from a police officer's waist and cuffed Harley's hand to a nearby iron railing with a click. "Puddin', save me." Harley struggled and cried out. The Joker was about to rush over to save Harley when Lin Yi quickly stepped forward, grabbed his arm, pinned him to the ground, and cuffed his hand to the iron railing with another pair of handcuffs. Lying on the ground, the Joker continued to laugh maniacally. "You think this can trap me? Just wait, you'll all die." George walked over to Lin Yi and patted his shoulder. "Lin Yi, thank you, you saved us again." "You're welcome, Chief. Let's get out of here quickly, it's too dangerous." Lin Yi had just finished speaking when he suddenly heard a buzz from outside, like the sound of some kind of flying vehicle. "Watch out." Lin Yi abruptly pulled George behind a nearby pillar. Almost simultaneously, a green figure on a glider burst through the broken window, throwing a pumpkin-shaped bomb. Boom! The bomb exploded in the center of the hall, sending flames soaring and the blast wave overturning the surrounding iron barrels. Gasoline spilled onto the ground, instantly igniting a large fire. Several police officers who couldn't dodge in time were hit by bomb fragments, falling to the ground, their blood quickly staining the floor. Green Goblin. Lin Yi sighed. It seemed Norman Osborn had ultimately gone insane. The Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, landed on the ground, took off his green mask, revealing a wrinkled face filled with madness and arrogance. "George Stacy. I didn't expect to meet you here. But unfortunately, today is your doomsday." As he spoke, he pulled another pumpkin bomb from his waist and threw it towards George and Lin Yi. Lin Yi reacted extremely quickly, pulling George into a roll, dodging the bomb. The bomb hit the wall, blasting a large hole, and rubble rained down. "Chief, take the remaining officers and retreat, leave this to me." Lin Yi shouted at George, getting up and charging towards the Green Goblin. "Little guy, you want to fight me too?" The Green Goblin sneered, controlling his glider to fly into the air, swooping down on Lin Yi from above. The edges of the glider gleamed coldly, as if to cleave Lin Yi in half. Lin Yi, relying on his 20 points of speed, quickly dodged. The glider grazed his shoulder, leaving a deep mark on the ground. He seized the opportunity to jump up and punch the Green Goblin's leg, but the Green Goblin wore hard armor. Lin Yi's fist only made a thump sound, causing no damage to the Green Goblin, who instead kicked Lin Yi flying. Lin Yi crashed into the wall, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Although his strength had increased to 21 points, the Green Goblin's armor was too strong defensively, and he couldn't injure him with bare hands. Moreover, the Green Goblin was agile in the air, making him impossible to hit. Ding! Detected Lin Yi fighting the Green Goblin, triggering high-intensity confrontation, gained 150 points of shock value. Ding. Detected George and 2 police officers experiencing shock plus worry, gained 90 times 2 equals 180 points of shock value. Current cumulative, 6,370 points. System evaluation. Host, you're throwing your life away. How dare you fight the armored Green Goblin without equipment? Find a solution quickly, don't fight him head on. Just then, the Joker and Harley, who were cuffed to the railing, suddenly started causing trouble. The Joker kicked a nearby iron barrel, sending the gasoline barrel rolling towards George's direction. The Joker shouted, "Harley, shoot the barrel with the gun next to you." Harley really lowered her head and reached for the deceased officer's pistol with her other hand. Although she didn't reach it, she attracted George's attention. The remaining 2 police officers had to divert their attention to control the Joker and Harley, having no time to help Lin Yi. The Green Goblin seized the opportunity, firing a laser from the air towards Lin Yi. The laser shot from the front of the glider, grazing Lin Yi's arm and leaving a scorched mark on the ground. "Little guy, you're almost done for, aren't you? Give up resisting, and I can make your death quicker." The Green Goblin laughed maniacally, firing several more lasers. Lin Yi dodged the lasers, his anxiety growing. If this continued, they would all die. Just as he was about to give up, a sudden roar of an engine came from the sky. A red figure burst through the roof and flew in, firing a repulsor blast at the Green Goblin's glider. Boom! The repulsor blast hit the glider's engine, causing the Green Goblin to lose control and fall from the air, crashing to the ground. Who? The Green Goblin angrily looked up and saw the red armored figure, Iron Man, Tony Stark. Tony hovered in the air, his helmet's faceplate open, revealing his cynical face. He raised an eyebrow at the Green Goblin. "Norman Osborn. Your green outfit, your taste is terrible, isn't it? And you too." He turned to look at the Joker and Harley, who were cuffed to the railing, and mocked, "Purple suit with face paint, red and black bodysuit with a baseball bat. Are you here for a Halloween party?" "Iron Man!" George exclaimed in surprise. He hadn't expected Iron Man to appear suddenly. The Joker, seeing Iron Man, not only wasn't scared but laughed even more wildly. "Oh, it's the famous Iron Man. Are you here to save these police officers? Too bad, you're too late, everyone else has escaped." "Is that so?" Tony sneered, firing 2 paralysis rays at the Joker and Harley. The rays hit the Joker and Harley, who immediately convulsed and lost their ability to resist. "2 crazies dealt with," Tony said, then turned to the Green Goblin. "Now it's your turn, Norman." The Green Goblin was about to stand up when Tony had already flown in front of him, grabbing his armor and lifting him up. "You think you can do whatever you want in that broken armor? In front of me, you're a joke." As he spoke, his repulsor blast fired again, hitting the Green Goblin's armor. The armor instantly blasted open a large hole, and the Green Goblin screamed in pain. Tony threw the Green Goblin to the ground and stepped on his chest. "Don't move, or I'll dismantle both you and your armor." Iron Man is truly impressive. He dealt with the villains in minutes, villains that George couldn't handle. Lin Yi walked over to George. "Sheriff, are you alright?" "I'm fine, Lin Yi, thank you." George shook his head, looking at the subdued Green Goblin, Joker, and Harley Quinn on the ground, and the deceased officers. His eyes were filled with grief. "It's a shame they didn't make it." Tony closed his helmet's faceplate and flew in front of Lin Yi. "Kid, you're pretty good. Without any gear, you managed to fight the Green Goblin for so long, much better than these police officers." Lin Yi smiled. "Thank you, I just did what I had to do." New York Police Department. Tony turned to George. "So many people, yet you can't even handle a few criminals. You even needed a kid to save the day, your capabilities are really subpar." George's face flushed red, but he couldn't refute it. Tony was speaking the truth. If it hadn't been for Lin Yi and Tony this time, he and all the officers would have died there. "Alright, I have other things to do, so I won't play with you anymore." Tony said. "Jarvis, notify the police to come and take these criminals away." After speaking, he controlled his armor and flew out through the broken roof, quickly disappearing into the night sky. Not long after, more police cars and ambulances arrived at Arkham Asylum. Medical personnel carried away the injured and deceased officers, while other police officers escorted the Green Goblin, Joker, and Harley Quinn into police cars, sending them to prison. George stood in the hall, looking at the chaotic scene, and sighed deeply. Lin Yi walked over and patted his shoulder. Sheriff, don't blame yourself too much. These criminals were too powerful, it's not your fault. George nodded. Lin Yi, thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have survived today. If you ever need any help in the future, just let me know. Okay. Lin Yi smiled. Ding. Detected Iron Man's appearance and resolution of the villain, triggering a key plot, gaining plus 300 shock value. Ding. Detected strong shock emotions from the police officers and medical personnel present, gaining plus 100 x 5 equals 500 shock value. Current total, 7,170 points. System evaluation. Host, you were lucky this time to have Iron Man save the day. However, don't always rely on others. Quickly earn shock value to improve your abilities and strive to deal with villains yourself next time. It was already 11 o'clock at night when the black police car slowly stopped at the entrance of the Stacy family's small courtyard. Lin Yi helped a somewhat tired George out of the car. The streetlight shone on George's dust-covered police uniform, revealing several cuts from bomb fragments. With a click, the courtyard gate was pulled open from the inside. Gwen, wearing cream-colored pajamas, her hair a bit messy, and her eyes red, had clearly been waiting for a long time. The moment she saw George, she couldn't hold back any longer, rushing over to hug her father's waist. Dad. You're finally back. I called you so many times and no one answered, I was so worried about you. George gently patted his daughter's back, his voice a little hoarse. I'm sorry, Gwen, the signal at Arkham wasn't good, I made you worry. He paused, then looked at Lin Yi beside him, being able to come back safely this time is thanks to Lin Yi and Iron Man. If Lin Yi hadn't stopped the Joker in time, we might all have been blown to cinders. Lin Yi. Gwen released George and turned to look at Lin Yi, her gaze falling on the scrapes on his arm, making her eyes even redder. You're hurt. Does it hurt? It's nothing, just a small scratch, it's almost healed. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand. As soon as he finished speaking, Gwen suddenly stepped forward and gently hugged him, carrying a faint scent of lavender laundry detergent. Lin Yi's body stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, and he gently patted her back. Gwen quickly let go, her cheeks a little red, and she whispered, Thank you, Lin Yi, for saving my dad again. No need to thank me, we're friends. Lin Yi smiled. The three walked into the living room, and Gwen poured warm water for George and Lin Yi. George sat on the sofa, rubbing his temples, and said to Gwen, This Arkham riot was Norman Osborn's doing. He used the asylum riot to try and create chaos, but thankfully, Iron Man subdued him. Norman Osborn. Gwen's eyes widened in surprise. You mean the founder of Oscorp Industries? I even saw him last week when I went for my internship. I can't believe he's the Green Goblin. Stay away from Oscorp Industries in the future, it's too dangerous. George warned. Understood. Gwen nodded, feeling a bit disappointed, but relieved that her father was safe. She checked the time and said to Lin Yi, Lin Yi, do you want to chat on the balcony? It's quite cool outside. Sure. Lin Yi nodded and followed Gwen to the balcony. The night wind carried the fresh scent of grass and trees, the distant streetlights glowed with warm yellow light, and occasionally cars drove by, leaving faint engine sounds. Gwen leaned against the balcony railing, looking at the distant night view, and said softly, Professor Klein called me this afternoon. He said the school has officially hired you as a school assistant, mainly responsible for organizing library books and archiving materials. You can report tomorrow. The salary is $15 per hour, paid weekly. Really? That's great. Lin Yi said. Also, Gwen turned to look at him, with a hint of reminder in her eyes. The professor also asked me to tell you not to forget to go to his lab tomorrow afternoon at 4 to assist him with experiments. I remember, I'll be there on time tomorrow afternoon. Gwen then thought of her internship and was a bit upset. With what happened at Oscorp Industries, my internship is definitely ruined. I originally wanted to learn more there. Don't be discouraged, you're so excellent, you'll definitely find better internship opportunities. Oh, Miss Diana said she would recommend me as an assistant at the museum where she works. Lin Yi said. Really? That's fantastic. Gwen said, Working at a museum would be great too, and Miss Diana is so capable, I'm sure I could learn a lot. Oh, I also heard that Stark Industries is holding the Stark Expo in a few days, and they'll be hiring a lot of interns then. I plan to try it out. Maybe I can get an internship position at Stark Industries. Stark Industries. That's a great opportunity. Lin Yi was also happy for her, you'll definitely get in. Your biochemistry is so good, Stark Industries definitely needs talent like you. I hope so. Gwen smiled, revealing two shallow dimples. It's getting late, let's go to bed early. We have school tomorrow. Okay, good night. Lin Yi said. At 7 o'clock the next morning, Lin Yi was woken up by Gwen's knock on the door. When he got dressed and went downstairs, George had already left for the police station. On the dining table was breakfast prepared by Gwen, fried eggs, toast, and hot milk. Hurry up and eat, or you'll be late. Gwen pushed the milk towards Lin Yi, while she herself took a slice of toast, eating it while flipping through her biochemistry notes. Lin Yi picked up a slice of toast and took a bite. Do you have any important classes today? Yes, I do. This morning there's a key lecture by the professor. I heard they'll be discussing new research on protein folding, which is especially important. Gwen looked up. Oh, right, you're supposed to report to school this morning to get your staff uniform and work schedule. We can go to school together, and I'll take you to the staff department. Okay, Lin Yi nodded. After breakfast, the two walked to school together. Forest Hills was very quiet in the early morning, with sunlight filtering through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Gwen spent the whole walk telling Lin Yi about things to pay attention to at school. As soon as they walked through the gates of Empire State University, they saw Peter running over, backpack on, panting, his hair messy, and his glasses askew. Gwen. Lin Yi. Good morning. Peter shouted as he ran, almost bumping into a girl carrying books. Sorry. Sorry. Peter, always in such a hurry. Gwen shook her head helplessly. I had a morning job, so I'm a bit rushed, Peter said awkwardly, adjusting his crooked glasses, and looked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi, are you here at school today, to see Gwen? No, Lin Yi said with a smile. I received a notice yesterday that the school hired me as a staff member, and I'm here to report today. Staff member. Peter's eyes widened in surprise. He's going to be a staff member. But he's so amazing, he can defeat thugs and even fight Green Goblin. It's such a waste for him to be a staff member. Peter. Gwen gently tugged at Peter's arm, signaling him to stop talking. She was afraid Peter's words would hurt Lin Yi's self-esteem. Lin Yi, however, didn't mind. He said with a smile, it's okay. The staff job is stable, and I can stay at school and even study at the same time. It's pretty good. Peter was about to say something else when the class bell suddenly rang. Ah, class is starting. I need to rush to class. Peter said. Lin Yi, we'll talk after class. Lin Yi watched their retreating figures and couldn't help but smile. He turned and walked towards the staff department, where he received his staff uniform, a dark blue jacket. His work schedule was to organize the third floor of the library in the morning and clean Building A of the academic building in the afternoon. Lin Yi put on his staff uniform and went to the third floor of the library. The third floor was the professional books section, with thick professional books lining the shelves. Some book covers even had complex formulas and charts printed on them. According to his work schedule, he put the scattered books back in their original places, organizing them by classification number. Near noon, Lin Yi finished organizing the library and went to the academic building to find Gwen for lunch. Suddenly, he heard a lively discussion coming from Building A of the academic building. He walked over curiously and saw many students gathered around the notice board in the academic building, discussing animatedly. Gwen and Peter were also in the crowd. Gwen was frowning, looking at a piece of paper on the notice board. Gwen, what's wrong? What happened? Lin Yi walked over and patted Gwen's shoulder. Gwen turned around and saw Lin Yi, saying, Lin Yi. How did you get here? Aren't you working at the library? I've finished my work and came over to take a look, Lin Yi said. Why are so many people gathered around? Peter leaned in and said, well, the professor who was supposed to teach biochemistry today is sick, so the school temporarily invited a very famous professor to substitute, Professor Alan Grant, who was nominated for the Nobel Prize. His lectures are super interesting, and he talked about a lot of cutting-edge research in biochemistry. After class, he said he'd leave us a problem, which is on the notice board. He said it's a particularly complex biochemistry problem, involving protein folding and enzyme kinetics. If anyone can solve it, they'll get a scholarship under his name, which is $5,000. $5,000. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. This money would be enough to cover several months of his rent and living expenses. Gwen nodded. This problem is indeed very difficult. It involves the latest protein structure prediction models and enzyme active site analysis. I've been looking at it for a long time and haven't found a way to solve it yet. The surrounding students were also discussing animatedly. This problem is too hard, isn't it? Is Professor Grant deliberately trying to make things difficult for us? I don't even understand the question, let alone solve it. Isn't Gwen the best student in our class? If even she has no clue, there's no hope for us. A $5,000 scholarship. It would be great if I could get it, but it's too difficult. Lin Yi looked at the problem on the notice board. It was filled with complex formulas and technical terms, involving protein primary to quaternary structures, as well as Michaelis-Menten equations and inhibitor analysis for enzyme reactions. It was indeed not something an ordinary student could solve. But under the system's enhancement, his intelligence and comprehension abilities far surpassed ordinary people. Although this problem was difficult, he already had a preliminary idea of how to solve it. Gwen, Lin Yi suddenly spoke, if I can solve this problem, you'll obediently go to the cafeteria to eat and stop staring at the problem, okay? Gwen was stunned for a moment and looked at Lin Yi in surprise. You have a way to solve this problem. Lin Yi, this problem is very difficult. Even Professor Grant said that it's a topic he's been researching recently and a problem he hasn't completely solved yet. The surrounding students also heard Lin Yi's words and turned to look at him, their eyes full of doubt and ridicule. Who is he? Wearing a staff uniform, is he a staff member? A staff member wants to solve biochemistry problems. Don't joke around. Is he not fully awake? Even Gwen can't solve it, how could a staff member solve it? Don't waste time, staff member, hurry up and clean. Peter also tugged at Lin Yi's arm and whispered, Lin Yi, this problem is really difficult. I looked at it for a long time and didn't even understand the formulas. Lin Yi turned to Gwen and said, give me a pen and a piece of paper. Gwen quickly took out a pen and paper from her backpack and handed them to Lin Yi. The surrounding students all quieted down, watching Lin Yi, wanting to see what this staff member was going to do, whether he could really solve the problem or was just boasting. Lin Yi took the pen and paper, walked to the bulletin board, and carefully looked at the problem, his brows slightly furrowed. His fingers moved quickly across the paper, writing down complex formulas one after another. First, analyze the amino acid sequence of the protein to determine its primary structure. Then, based on the hydrophobicity and hydrogen bonds of the amino acids, predict the secondary structure, alpha helices and beta sheets. Next, calculate the tertiary and quaternary structures of the protein through molecular dynamics simulations. Finally, combine the Michaelis-Menten equation of enzyme-catalyzed reactions to analyze the enzyme's active site and the mechanism of inhibitor action. His pen moved very fast, and the paper was densely covered with formulas, yet they were neatly arranged, and each step of the derivation was clear and understandable. The students around him, who had initially scoffed, gradually became astonished. They were all elites, and when Lin Yi wrote down the answer, everyone realized it was correct. Gwen stood nearby, her eyes widening, muttering softly, that's right, this derivation is correct, so this is how you can analyze protein folding, why didn't I think of it? Peter also leaned in to look. Although he didn't understand many parts, he could feel that Lin Yi's problem-solving approach was very clear and more impressive than any other student he had seen. 10 minutes later, Lin Yi put down his pen and let out a long sigh of relief. He tore off the paper filled with the answer, pasted it under the problem on the bulletin board, and smiled at Gwen, all right, it's solved. Shall we go eat? The surrounding students were silent for a few seconds before an exclamation erupted. Oh my god. He really solved it. This is too amazing. It's even clearer than what the professor explained. He's actually a school janitor. With this level, he could be a teaching assistant. I was just mocking him, now I'm so embarrassed. Gwen is so lucky to know such an amazing person. Ding. Detected strong shock emotions from 50 students around, gaining plus 50 times 50 equals 2,500 shock points. Ding. Detected strong shock plus admiration emotions from Gwen, gaining plus 100 shock points. Ding. Detected strong shock emotions from Peter, gaining plus 80 shock points. Ding. Accumulated shock points reached 10,000. Superman gene awakening level increased to 5%. Basic attribute panel updated. Strength, 24 plus 3. Speed, 23 plus 3. Endurance, 25 plus 3. Reaction, 22 plus 3. Self-healing, 20 plus 3. IQ, 180 plus 20. Note. IQ has surpassed human average, reaching genius level. New function unlocked. Superbrain Jr. can quickly analyze complex information, improving learning and problem-solving abilities. System evaluation. Host, this, playing the pig to eat the tiger, operation is quite good. Solving a difficult problem as a school janitor, you've earned a full pot of shock points. However, your IQ has increased to 180. Next time, you can try more difficult problems, like solving a quantum mechanics equation. Lin Yi ignored the system's teasing and looked at the shocked expressions of the surrounding students, feeling a little smug. He hadn't expected his system-enhanced brain to be so effective. Gwen walked up to Lin Yi, her eyes full of admiration. Lin Yi, you're too amazing. Even Professor Grant said this problem was very difficult, but you solved it in just 10 minutes. It's nothing, I just happened to know how. Lin Yi scratched his head. Peter also walked over, patted Lin Yi's shoulder, and said with a look of admiration, Lin Yi, you're incredible. If I have any biochemistry questions in the future, can I ask you? Of course, as long as I know it, I can help you, Lin Yi said with a smile. Just then, an old man in a gray suit walked over. It was Professor Alan Grant, who was substituting for class today. He had been organizing material in his office and came out to see what the exclamations were about, only to find Lin Yi's answer on the bulletin board. Professor Grant picked up the answer sheet and looked at it carefully. His brows, initially furrowed, gradually relaxed, and finally, a joyful smile appeared on his face. He looked up at Lin Yi. Young man, did you solve this problem? Yes, Professor, Lin Yi nodded. Excellent. Professor Grant excitedly grabbed Lin Yi's hand. Your derivation process is perfectly correct, and it even includes a key point that my research missed, the analysis of enzyme active site mutations. I never thought of that before. What's your name? Which major are you studying? My name is Lin Yi, and I'm not a student here. I'm a school janitor, Lin Yi answered truthfully. A janitor. Professor Grant's eyes widened in surprise, then he chuckled. I never expected Imperial State University to hide such a talented person among its janitors. Young man, are you interested in further studies? I can recommend you to my research team and even offer you a full scholarship to officially become a student here, studying biochemistry. The surrounding students once again burst into exclamations. Professor Grant was actually going to recommend a janitor to his research team and even offer a full scholarship. This was an enormous honor. Gwen and Peter also looked at Lin Yi in surprise, happy for him. Lin Yi's heart stirred. Joining Professor Grant's research team and becoming an official student would allow him to access cutting-edge research, perhaps accelerating his gene awakening speed and even compensating for Superman's weakness to kryptonite. Moreover, a full scholarship would solve his financial problems, so he wouldn't have to worry about living expenses anymore. He smiled and nodded. Thank you, Professor. I accept. Excellent. Professor Grant patted Lin Yi's shoulder. Come to my lab tomorrow, and I'll arrange your studies and research tasks. You have great talent, and if you work hard, you'll surely achieve great things in the field of biochemistry. Professor Grant chatted with Lin Yi for a few more moments before leaving, satisfied. The surrounding students were still gathered around Lin Yi. Some asked him for his problem-solving approach, while others wanted to befriend him. The scene was as lively as a small party. Gwen tugged on Lin Yi's arm and said with a smile, all right, stop chatting. Let's go eat. Didn't you say we'd eat after you finish the problem? Right, let's eat. Lin Yi remembered he hadn't had lunch yet, and his stomach was already growling. He greeted the surrounding students and walked towards the cafeteria with Gwen and Peter. What he didn't know was that in a nearby academic building, Professor Klein was looking at Lin Yi's retreating figure through a window, a strange smile playing on his lips. He looked up at Building B, the teaching building not far away. The windows on the third floor were tightly shut. That was the direction of Professor Crane's laboratory. Professor Grant's invitation this morning still echoed in his ears. A full scholarship, a spot on the research team. These things, which should have excited him, were weighed down by the afternoon's experiment. Ding. The host has detected strong anxiety. The system kindly reminds you, Professor Crane's laboratory has high risks. It is recommended that the host enter with caution. If a dangerous event is triggered, the system can provide emergency avoidance guidance requires 1000 shock points. System evaluation. Has the host forgotten who Crane is? Fear gas is no joke. A 1% dose can drive a strong man insane. With the host's current 5% awakening, it's uncertain if he can withstand it. Lin Yi took a deep breath, suppressing the system's complaints. He hadn't forgotten, he just had no choice. The janitor's salary wouldn't be paid until next week, and Professor Grant's scholarship wouldn't arrive until after official enrollment. Meanwhile, Crane's promised experiment compensation was cash, $200 an hour, which he would receive after completing today's experiment. He only had the $50 Gwen gave him in his pocket. If he didn't earn money soon, even tomorrow's lunch would be a problem. The corridor of Building B was very quiet. The afternoon classes hadn't ended yet, and only a few students hurried by, clutching books. Lin Yi walked to the door of Laboratory 302 and raised his hand to knock. Come in. Professor Crane's gentle voice came from inside. Lin Yi pushed open the door, and a faint scent of disinfectant mixed with a subtle, sweet, cloying aroma wafted towards him. The sweet smell was very faint, yet it inexplicably made him feel uneasy. Several precision instruments were arranged in the laboratory, and test tubes held liquids of various colors. A dangerous chemicals label was affixed to a cabinet in the corner. On the innermost operating table, there was a transparent glass cover, under which lines seemed to be connected, and next to it was an instrument for monitoring brainwaves. Professor Crane, wearing a white lab coat and gold-rimmed glasses, was adjusting an instrument, head bowed. Seeing Lin Yi enter, he looked up and smiled. Lin Yi, you're here. Don't stand, have a seat. I've made you a cup of coffee. A steaming cup of coffee sat next to the operating table. Lin Yi walked over and sat down, his fingertip touching the cup's side. The temperature was just right. He watched Crane skillfully manipulate the test tubes and couldn't help but ask, Professor, what exactly are we doing in today's experiment? It's very simple. Crane picked up a test tube containing a light green liquid, held it up to the light, and spoke in a relaxed tone, as if discussing everyday matters. You'll just sit in the glass cover, inhale a bit of the experimental gas, and then we'll monitor your brainwave reactions. It's mainly to test the effect of different gases on human emotions. It's very safe, we've done it several times before. How did the previous experiment subjects react? Lin Yi pressed, his unease growing stronger. Crane's movements paused for a moment, then he quickly regained his composure, smiling as he said, they were all normal, just some slight emotional fluctuations. They recovered after a short rest once the experiment was over. Don't worry, I'll control the dosage and won't let you experience any discomfort. As he spoke, he poured the light green liquid into a small nebulizer, which was connected to the glass cover's tubing. The light green liquid turned into a fine mist, slowly drifting into the glass cover along the tubing. The subtle, sweet, cloying smell grew stronger. Lin Yi suddenly recalled the system's earlier warning. This was clearly the prototype of fear gas. Ding. Fear gas primary detected. The host's current gene awakening level can resist low doses of gas, but prolonged exposure will lead to mental damage. It is recommended to leave immediately. Ding. Hidden malicious emotions detected from Crane. Gained plus 50 shock points. Current total, 10,230 points. Just as Lin Yi was about to stand up and say, I'm not doing it, the laboratory door suddenly burst open with a bang. Wood splinters flew, and the door slammed heavily against the wall, making a jarring sound. A young man in a tailored black suit stood at the doorway, his black hair meticulously combed, his deep blue eyes like chipped ice. It was Bruce Wayne, whom he had met at the school gate that morning. Alfred wasn't with him. His gaze swept over the laboratory with unconcealed coldness. Professor Crane, Bruce's voice was even colder than that morning, didn't I tell you not to conduct these experiments anymore? Not to touch that stuff again. Crane's face instantly changed, but he quickly forced himself to appear calm. Young Master Wayne, what do you mean? I am conducting a normal psychology experiment, and Lin Yi is participating voluntarily. This has nothing to do with you, does it? Voluntarily. Bruce scoffed, pulling a stack of photos from his pocket and tossing them onto the operating table. The photos showed several pale young people, some with vacant stares, others huddled in corners. The background of the photos was clearly the glass cover in this very laboratory. The previous volunteers are still in the mental hospital. You're telling me, voluntarily. Lin Yi picked up the photos. The people in them looked to be about his age, and their eyes were filled with fear, clearly tormented by the fear gas. He looked up at Crane, whose face had completely paled, his hand unconsciously tightening around the test tube. Bruce no longer looked at Crane, turning instead to Lin Yi. His gaze lingered on Lin Yi for a few seconds, scanning from the collar of his janitor's uniform to his worn-out sneakers, a complex emotion in his eyes. Lin Yi felt uncomfortable under his gaze. I'm really not a gigolo. You're Lin Yi. Bruce spoke, his tone softening slightly. Professor Grant mentioned you to me, said you solved his problem and are very talented. Before he could react, Bruce pulled a thick wad of dollars from his inner suit pocket and placed it on the table in front of Lin Yi. The green bills were neatly stacked, at least $5,000 by estimation. This is for you, Bruce said. Professor Grant has already told me he wants you in his research team, full scholarship, plus a monthly stipend. You don't need to earn money through these experiments. Come with me. Lin Yi stared at the dollars on the table, his breath catching. $5,000. It was enough to cover several months of his rent, with plenty left over for living expenses, far more than Crane's experimental compensation. He looked up at Bruce, then at Crane, who was glaring at him fiercely. Ding. High funds provided by Bruce Wayne detected. Host generated strong shock plus heart-pounding emotions. Gained plus 150 shock points. Ding. Strong anger plus threat emotions detected from Crane. Gained plus 80 shock points. Current total, 10,460 points. System evaluation. Host, take it quickly. This is Batman's money, it's a steal. And by following Bruce, you might even get some high-tech equipment. It's much better than playing with gas with Scarecrow. Lin Yi didn't hesitate for too long. What he needed most right now was money, and Clint's experiments were clearly problematic. Staying here would only be more dangerous. He reached out, took the dollar bills from the table, and put them into his uniform pocket. Thank you, young Master Wayne. Don't thank me, Bruce said indifferently. Your talent deserves better opportunities, don't waste it in a place like this. As he spoke, he turned to look at Clint, his eyes growing cold again. Professor Clint, I hope you remember, this is the last time. If I find you messing with these sinister things again, the consequences will be more than you can bear. Clint gritted his teeth, not speaking, just staring intently at Bruce's retreating figure. Lin Yi followed Bruce out of the laboratory. The sunlight in the corridor shone on him, and only then did he feel his tense nerves relax. As he reached the stairwell, he couldn't help but glance back at the door of Laboratory 302, secretly relieved. Fortunately, Bruce had arrived in time, otherwise he might really have fallen into Clint's hands today. No need to look back, Bruce's voice came from ahead. Clint won't give up, but he won't dare to touch you for now. Lin Yi quickly caught up with Bruce and couldn't help but ask, Young Master Wayne, how did you know Professor Clint was conducting such experiments? Do you know him? My father funded Clint's research when he was alive. Bruce's steps paused slightly. Later, he found that Clint's research direction was becoming increasingly extreme, so he stopped the funding. But Clint didn't give up and has been secretly conducting these dangerous experiments. Several people have already been harmed by him. He looked at Bruce's profile. This young man, similar in age to him, possessed a composure and sharpness far beyond his peers, like a knife hidden in its sheath, seemingly gentle, but actually sharp. The two walked to the entrance of the teaching building, where a black Bentley Mulsanne was parked by the roadside, with Alfred standing beside it. Seeing Bruce and Lin Yi emerge, Alfred bowed slightly. young master, is everything handled? Bruce nodded, then turned to Lin Yi and said, I'll have Alfred drive you back, or where would you like to go? No need to trouble yourself, young Master Wayne, Lin Yi quickly waved his hand. I still need to go back to the school library to organize materials. I can just walk back. Thank you for the money, I'll repay you in the future. No need to repay me, Bruce said indifferently. Consider it my support for a talented person. As for Professor Grant, I'll speak to him and have him process your admission as soon as possible. Thank you, young Master Wayne. Lin Yi thanked him again, his heart full of gratitude. Alfred opened the car door, and Bruce bent down to get in. Before closing the door, he looked at Lin Yi again. If you encounter trouble, you can call this number to find me. He handed Lin Yi a black business card with only a phone number, no name. Lin Yi took the business card and carefully put it in his pocket. Okay, thank you. The Bentley Mulsanne slowly drove away. Lin Yi watched the car disappear into the traffic before turning to walk towards the library. Meanwhile, inside the Bentley, the atmosphere was somewhat heavy. Alfred drove while speaking softly. Young master, news just came from the police station. Captain George Stacy is increasing night patrols in Queens, saying it's to guard against remnants of Arkham escapees. The situation in New York has been unstable recently. Spider-Man's frequent appearances have already caught Commissioner Gordon's attention. If you operate at night, you might be targeted. Bruce leaned back in his seat, his fingers lightly tapping his knee, his gaze fixed on the streetscape flashing past the window. Alfred, New York needs someone to step up. The police have their rules, but some criminals aren't bound by rules. Clint, the Joker, the Green Goblin, they won't stop their evil deeds just because the police are patrolling. Someone has to watch them and stop them. I understand your intentions, young master, Alfred sighed, but you must also pay attention to your safety. Although the Bat-suit's primary defense system has been completed, facing villains like the Green Goblin still carries risks. And you're still in school. You can't let anyone discover your identity. At the mention of the Bat-suit, Bruce's eyes lit up. The Bat-suit's laser defense system has been debugged. Next time I encounter the Green Goblin, I won't let him be so arrogant. As for my identity, I'll be careful. He paused, then added, oh, and Alfred, please look into Lin Yi's background for me. I have a feeling he's not simple. Being able to fight thugs bare-handed and solve Professor Grant's difficult problem, an ordinary school staff member shouldn't have such strong abilities. Understood, young master, I'll investigate as soon as possible. Alfred nodded, saying no more. Meanwhile, in Laboratory 302, Professor Clint was frantically smashing test tubes. Pale green liquid spilled onto the floor, emitting a strong, sickly sweet smell, and the entire laboratory was filled with a dangerous aura. He looked in the direction Bruce had left, his eyes full of venom. Bruce Wayne. Do you think you can stop me? Just wait, I'll make you and everyone who opposes me taste fear. He walked to a cabinet in the corner, opened a hidden compartment, and inside lay a black notebook filled with dense experimental data. On the last page, several names were written, and Lin Yi's name was circled, with a skull drawn next to it. Clint picked up a pen and wrote a line of text after Lin Yi's name. Great potential, suitable as the ultimate test subject for fear gas, must be secured as soon as possible. But Lin Yi still didn't know that he had been targeted by Clint. At this moment, he was in the library organizing materials, occasionally taking out his phone to chat with Gwen and share the news of receiving Bruce's help. Gwen sent a series of astonished emojis in her message, saying she couldn't believe he actually knew Bruce Wayne and had even received his funding. Lin Yi looked at the message on his phone screen, a smile involuntarily playing on his lips. Ding. Detecting strong hope emotion from the host, system encouragement mechanism triggered, gaining an additional +50 shock value. Current total, 10,510 points. System evaluation. The host finally looks a bit like a protagonist. But don't get too happy too soon. Clint hasn't given up, and Bruce is also investigating you. There's still plenty of trouble ahead. Hurry up and increase your gene awakening level, otherwise, if you encounter danger next time, you won't be so lucky. Lin Yi ignored the system's nagging and continued to organize his materials. It was 6 p.m. in Queens, New York, and rush hour traffic had brought the streets to a standstill. Don't be so nervous, Gwen said, noticing his unease. She smiled and patted his arm. I don't mind if it's just a street stall. What matters is eating with you. Lin Yi looked up, meeting her bright blue eyes. The golden rays of the setting sun filtered through the bus stop glass, landing on Gwen's blonde hair like scattered diamonds. The 14 bus pulled up to the stop with a clank, and the doors opened, almost pushing them apart with the surge of people. Quick, get on. Lin Yi reacted swiftly, grabbing Gwen's wrist and shielding her as he pushed through the crowd onto the bus. The bus was packed during rush hour, even the handrails were occupied. Lin Yi could only shield Gwen in a corner by the window, using his back to block the jostling crowd. Gwen leaned against the window, catching a faint, pleasant lemon scent from Lin Yi. She looked up at Lin Yi's profile. He was frowning, carefully avoiding other passengers' arms, afraid of bumping into her. As the bus swayed forward, Gwen's shoulder occasionally brushed against Lin Yi's arm. Watching Lin Yi protect her so earnestly, a warmth suddenly surged within her. From the bank heist to the Arkham crisis, Lin Yi always appeared when she needed him. Even though he was just a newcomer to New York, he always shielded her. Lin Yi, Gwen called softly. What is it? Lin Yi looked down, meeting her gaze. Before Lin Yi could react, Gwen suddenly stood on her tiptoes and quickly kissed his cheek. Her soft lips brushed his skin, carrying a faint orange scent. Lin Yi's body instantly froze, and his breathing stopped for half a second. The surrounding passengers seemed not to notice this small gesture. Only Gwen's cheeks were as red as ripe apples. She quickly lowered her head, pretending to look out the window, her voice barely a whisper. Thank you for always protecting me. Ding. Detected Gwen actively kissing the host, triggering a high sweet interaction, gaining +120 shock value. Ding. Host generated strong heart fluttering emotions, chain reaction triggered, gaining +80 shock value. Current total, 10,710 points. System evaluation. 000. Is the host about to get out of the single zone? Gwen made the first move. You should strike while the iron's hot. Next time, kiss her back directly, shock value will definitely double. Lin Yi touched the cheek that had been kissed, the warmth hadn't faded yet. He looked at Gwen's reddened ear tips and couldn't help but smile, his voice very soft. If I don't protect you, who will? The bus stopped with a creak at the Fifth Avenue station in Manhattan. Lin Yi took Gwen's hand and got off, the nervousness in his heart largely dispersed by the recent kiss. He had already researched a highly rated restaurant, said to specialize in authentic New York steak. He was just too rushed earlier and hadn't paid attention to the restaurant's name. It's that one up ahead. Lin Yi pointed to a restaurant with a warm yellow sign not far away, and pulled Gwen towards it. As soon as they reached the entrance, he froze. The restaurant's glass door had a large pink heart sticker. The servers at the door were wearing matching couple outfits and holding roses, and even the background music was a syrupy love song. A couple-themed restaurant. Lin Yi's face instantly turned red. He quickly turned to Gwen and said, I'm so sorry, Gwen, I didn't look closely before. How about we find another place? This one doesn't seem quite right. He was about to pull Gwen away, but Gwen suddenly stopped, linked her arm through his, and looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. I think this place is great. She paused, a hint of expectation in her voice. Anyway, how about we pretend to be a couple for one night? Lin Yi looked at her earnest gaze, and his hesitation instantly vanished. He nodded, his Adam's apple bobbing. Okay, whatever you say. A server approached with a smile, handing them 2 roses. Good evening, both of you, please come in. Would you like a window side table for couples? Yes, thank you. Gwen linked arms with Lin Yi, smiling exceptionally brightly. The two sat at a window side table, overlooking the night view of Fifth Avenue, with flashing neon lights and a steady stream of traffic. The server handed them menus. Gwen ordered a filet mignon, Lin Yi ordered a sirloin steak, and they also added a cheesy baked potato and 2 orange juices. Oh, right, Gwen said, cutting her steak, suddenly remembering something. Professor Grant messaged me today. He said your enrollment procedures are being processed, and you'll get your student ID next week. Then you can officially join his research team. The professor also said that your problem-solving approach gave him new inspiration, and he wants you to participate in his protein folding research project. You'll even get an extra subsidy. Lin Yi looked at Gwen and suddenly felt that even transmigrating to this crisis-ridden universe didn't seem like such a bad thing. The two ate and chatted, from school courses to interesting things in New York. Their eyes occasionally met, and the air was filled with a sweet aroma. After dinner, Lin Yi paid the bill. It totaled over $300, which was cheaper than he expected, and he still had plenty of money left in his pocket. Shall we walk back? Gwen suggested. The evening breeze is very pleasant, and it'll help us digest. Okay. Lin Yi smiled and nodded, walking side by side with Gwen on the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue. The night breeze carried a hint of coolness, feeling comfortable on their faces. Gwen's arm occasionally brushed against his. When they reached a quiet street corner, Gwen suddenly stopped and looked up at Lin Yi. The streetlight illuminated her face, casting faint shadows from her long eyelashes beneath her eyelids. Her lips were slightly pursed, as if she were hesitating about something. Lin Yi also stopped, looking at her, and suddenly understood what she wanted to do. He slowly leaned in, looking down into her eyes, clearly seeing his own reflection. Gwen's breathing gradually quickened, and she slowly closed her eyes. Just as their lips were about to meet, a loud bang suddenly erupted. A dark figure flew through the air, crashing heavily onto the hood of a nearby car, and the car alarm instantly blared. Lin Yi and Gwen were both startled. They quickly took a step back and looked at the dark figure. It was a man in black clothes, with an Arkham Asylum inmate number on his face, clearly an escaped convict. Sorry to interrupt you too. A clear and powerful female voice came. Lin Yi and Gwen turned and saw Diana in her classic attire. A red battle suit, golden gauntlets, the lasso of truth tied around her waist, long black hair flowing in the night breeze, and deep blue eyes as profound as the ocean, adding a few more touches of heroic spirit than during the day. Diana held a sword in her hand and quickly walked to the escaped convict, tying him up with her lasso. Her tone was serious. He's a high-security inmate who escaped from Arkham, involved in 3 robbery and murder cases. I've been chasing him for 2 blocks. As she spoke, she took out her phone from her pocket and called the NYPD. Hello, this is Diana Prince. At the intersection of 5th Avenue and Park Street, I've apprehended an Arkham escapee. Please send a police car. After hanging up, Diana looked at Lin Yi and Gwen, with a hint of apology in her eyes. I'm truly sorry for interrupting your date. Thanks for watching.